Live stream check. 3, 2, 1.
We're good to go. Okay, folks. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Scrutiny. Here we are on Tuesday in the city of Colchester in the town hall. Great to see so many people in the audience here physically. Great, and no doubt lots of folks watching at home. There are no practice evacuations or anticipated alarms this evening, so if something does go off, it will be for real. So if we can make our way downstairs in an orderly fashion or via the side staircase and rendezvous in the town hall car park out the back, please. The meeting, as ever, is being streamed live over the internet and recorded for posterity so we can all look back on it in the future. Discreet use of mobile phones and other tech is okay, but do you know what? Probably we need less screen time in our lives, so let's try and keep off them. We'll have a break at 7:30. It will be a long meeting tonight. We've got a lot to get through, so I will make sure that we have a comfort break around 7:30. I'm Councillor Darius Laws. I'm the chairman of this committee. I'm also a councillor for the villages north of Colchester. Can I have introductions, please, starting on my left, please, over there?
Councillor Clare.
Try again, Claire. And just a good moment to remind folks that we don't just use the microphones for the sake of it. It's about inclusion and making sure that everyone can hear proceedings, so we're just going to get that technical one resolved.
Right.
Okay, one more time.
Councillor Claire Osborne, Shrub End Ward.
Evening everyone, Councillor Sam McCarthy representing Shrub End Ward and substituting for Councillor Vanessa Moffat.
Good evening, Councillor Paul Smith representing St Anne's and St John's.
Councillor Richard Bourne, Newtown and Christchurch Ward, and I'm sub for Councillor Rippingale.
Councillor Thomas Rowe representing the villages of Rural North.
Dennis Willits, Lexington and Braeswick Ward.
Lucy Bredman, Strategic Director.
Richard Clifford, Democratic Services Manager.
Very good. Okay, we've had notice of substitutions, including our regular attendance at the super sub there, which is good to see you, Councillor Bourne. Item 3, urgent items. I'm not aware of any.
There are none, Chair.
Lovely. Item 4, declarations of interest. Councillor Osborne.
I'm referring to item 12. I just want to declare that I work at the Mercury Theatre. Will that be an issue? Do I need to step out?
No, I don't believe so, but I'm going to look to colleagues to confirm.
I think in view of the nature of the business and what you're being asked to look at, can I check, is it paid employment? Yeah.
Does that limit the probing?
Well, given that you're being asked to review the value that is provided by the grants that the partners receive, I would say that would be a disclosable. That would be an interest that would mean that you need to withdraw for that item.
Okay, that is good advice. Apologies if I wasn't giving you the answer you might have wanted. I think for the purposes of the meeting, it might be appropriate if you just remove yourself from this table and sit at the side and you can observe. I would have thought that's okay, but it's the probing that we can't have by the sounds of it on that item. Okay, great. Minutes. So we have 2 sets of minutes. I won't do them en masse because I wasn't at one of the meetings because we all seem to get a virus around December. So I won't be able to recommend that they're an accurate reflection of the meeting, though they look about right from the YouTube that I watched. But can I see someone propose that was at that meeting that the December minutes are okay?
Yeah, proposed.
Wonderful. Was anyone else there to agree to that? Councillor Smith? Yeah, okay. It looks like those minutes have been approved for the December meeting. And then for the January meeting, I'm very happy to propose that they were a great set of minutes and an accurate reflection of the night. I'm looking at Councillor Rowe.
Yep,
he
I
looks
can
like
second
he
them.
agrees. Does
Yep.
everyone agree? Or any corrections? All in favour?
Agreed.
Sold. Good. Right. Item 6, General Have Your Say. We do have a number of Have Your Say speakers tonight, although I think we'll be taking them under the relevant items on the agenda. So, Mr. Chilvers, you're going to be in for a late evening when we get to the Town Fund. Sorry, sound issues. Mr. Chilvers, you'll be here a bit late. That's great. And Ms. Appleyard will take you when we get on to the strategic art partner grants, which won't be very far away, I assure you. But for the first moment, if I can invite, please, Karina Cooper up to the desk.
Good evening. The Council has finally provided what they refer to as the Independent Report on the Safety of 5G, written in July 2025. We seek clarification on precisely what members understand independent to mean. If it means done by people outside of this Council, then it does tick that box. But if it's supposed to be independent of favourable bias towards 5G infrastructure, that is not a box it can tick. The EM Radiation Research Trust were directly referred to in this report. They have researched the authors and stated in an open letter, Intelligence Consulting is not a public health or environmental research authority, yet the report presents itself as independent. A consultancy whose professional purpose is to facilitate telecom infrastructure deployment cannot credibly be considered impartial when assessing potential health risks from that infrastructure. This raises serious concerns regarding objectivity and conflicts of interest. The report states some activist groups such as Action Against 5G and the EM Radiation Research Trust have influenced local discourse in Colchester. These groups raise concerns about certificate errors, cancer claims, or a lack of independent testing. This description incorrectly labels the RRT as an activist group spreading misinformation. In fact, the EM Radiation Research Trust is a registered UK charity that engages in evidence-based scientific advocacy, collaborates with independent scientists, organises international conferences and promotes the precautionary principle. Classifying our charity in this manner misrepresents its legitimate public health work and risks misleading both the Council and the public regarding the credibility of our evidence-based advocacy. The report was authored by Intelligence Consulting, a consultancy whose core business is advising telecom operators, investors and public authorities on the deployment of 5G, fibre networks, Internet of Things and smart city technologies. The report is led by Iqbal Singh Bedi, whose professional career has focused entirely on promoting and facilitating telecommunications infrastructure. There are too many errors in the report to list here and have been covered in the open letter from the EM Radiation Research Trust, which you've all been sent copies of. Ask yourselves, why is this sort of issue being missed by your organisation system? Glastonbury Council recognised uncertainty, adopted the precautionary principle, undertook a 6-month investigation with councillors, public participation and multiple experts, and triggered formal dialogue with government. Why isn't the same being done in Colchester with the concerns we've raised? Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Cooper, for coming along and having your say. I'm not qualified to respond to your statement. I'm grateful that you've come along and you've represented the views that you do on something that you clearly are far more informed about than I. I always keep an open mind, and so without prejudice, I simply will note what you said, and I do understand that you've had dialogue with the leader of the council previously and probably continuing. But I'm not going to give you a comment because I'm just not qualified to do that. But you have a right of reply.
We appreciate that this is a professional embarrassment to your organisation and leadership, that we, as a Council Watch grassroots movement, are demonstrating such problems as these to your organisation and have been doing so consistently for the past 3 years. Something is clearly not working. This current example is yet another demonstration of the serious organisation and advisory problems previously highlighted to the Council leadership and all councillors by our recent escalation and strategic risk warning notices. Ask yourselves, can your leadership really continue to justify trying to downplay and dismiss acting upon these notices? And as councillors and officers, are you okay with this? Thank you.
I've had an indication from the Deputy Chairman that he wishes to add comment. Please make it brief, Dennis. We have a very, very busy evening.
Yeah, yes, I'll try and be brief, Chairman. I too had difficulty finding this document, and it would appear that you can only view it if you're not logged into the council system. If you're logged in, you're not permitted to see the document. I really don't understand what that is all about. What I do understand is that it appears we have a report on 5G, which was supposed to be independent and has been written by an organisation which now appears to be a prime supporter of the 5G network. Can we add this to the work items to look at how it came about that we are in this position? Would you like me to continue when we get to item 9 on? Because I think this is an area which should be put on the agenda of the scrutiny panel to find out why we end up getting an independent report from an organisation which is paid to promote the very issue that we want an independent report on.
And let's do that under item 9. Thank you very much, Ms. Cooper. Okay, item 7, decisions taken under special urgency provisions. None that I'm aware of.
There are none, Chair.
Very good. Cabinet or portfolio holder decisions called in for review. None that I'm aware of.
There are none, Chair.
Well, isn't that good? Item 9, item requested by members of the panel for other members. Councillor Willits.
I think my explanation has already been given, that there is a question mark over this report and whether it was in fact an independent report on which the council could base a solid and sensible decision. And I would like an item to be added to the work programme for next civic year. Of course, it will be up to the new panel to decide whether they take that on, to review how it came about that we have a biased or possibly a biased report leading our decision making.
So the question you're putting is around the integrity of and independence of a report and the principles of that. So we're not necessarily seeking to have a work item looking in depth at some of the technical detail that's being presented tonight, but the principles, is that where I'm at?
I don't want to go into discussions on the danger of non-ionising radiation and all the other guff that's in the report. It's just a case of how it is. We were looking for independent advice and the council ends up getting potentially biased advice, and I think that is a procedural matter which we need to review, and it only needs to be a short review. It could be dealt with in a briefing note, if not as an agenda item.
Members, do I see dissent, or is everyone content with the suggestion? I'm content. A brief item is put onto the work programme for the next municipal year. Who will be here to undertake that? Who knows? But I think we have consensus that we will do that. So we'll move on, and it will go on to the next municipal year, which is not very far away, folks. Thank you. Okay, Councillor Willits, good stuff. Right. Now, we've rejigged the menu a little bit tonight, which is good news for some, but we're going to enable a discussion now around the review of strategic arts partners, and obviously our arts partners are very much our partners. They're our friends. They're NPO funded, and the City of Colchester Council also assists with a modest annual grant that I believe is assured for more than just a year. Before we do have some presentations and discussions and scrutiny, I believe we have a speaker on this item. So can I please welcome up to the Have Your Say desk, Miss Esme Appleyard, please. And Esme, I understand this is the first time that you've spoken in the Town Hall, so thank you very much for making time to do this. And it's never an easy thing to speak in front of a big room. I will give you latitude, do not worry. You're on microphone now, so have your say, and then we'll go from there.
Thank you. Hello, my name is Esme Appleyard. I am 17 years old, and I am a proud member of the Colchester Arts Centre Youth Board, and I'm here tonight to tell you about that experience. We are a group of 8 young people, all aged 17 to 19. When I first joined, I thought it might be a bit like work experience, something useful of course, but perhaps a little structured and limited. What I found instead was something genuinely rare, an experience built on trust, creativity, and the belief that young people have something meaningful to offer right now. From the outset, we weren't just invited to observe, we were invited to shape, lead, and take ownership. The Arts Centre gave us the opportunity to create and promote our own events, and with that came a level of responsibility that felt both exciting and deeply validating. It's not often that young people are trusted in this way, to take over a space, make decisions, and see those decisions come to life. Our most significant achievement has been the creation of Mixed Frequencies, a name entirely created by our youth board. It became more than just a title, it has now become an identity. Under that banner, we delivered 2 major live music events, each entirely programmed by us. Every act featured was a young person selected through our own discussion and shared vision. We brought together bands like Dollface and Syncopate, alongside solo artists as well, like Joseph Harley. Seeing those names on the Arts Centre stage, knowing we helped put them there, was something really special. Each event welcomed over 300 young people, transforming the venue into something vibrant and electric. The second event was particularly memorable, attended by Michael Lilly and Pam Cox, which reinforced just how valued youth-led initiatives can be within the wider community. What made the experience truly unique was the trust placed in us. We didn't just find the acts, we created the concept, delivered the branding, marketed the events, and hosted the night. We were responsible for the full journey, from the very first idea to the final moment when the last note faded. Our tagline, for young people, by young people, wasn't just a phrase, it was a promise, and one where we found to deliver on. The Youth Board has gone from strength to strength and is now an important and regular part of the Colchester Arts Centre programme. What started as an opportunity became something much bigger, a platform, a community, and a source of confidence for everyone involved. I feel incredibly grateful to be a part of this. Opportunities like this don't just happen, and they don't just benefit us in the moment. They shape how we see ourselves and what we're capable of. I'd like to sincerely thank the people of the Colchester Arts Centre community for making this possible, whose trust, encouragement and belief in young people have made something truly special. Thank you.
Very, very well said, and I'm sure that we're all sitting here envious because we recall back to our first speeches in this place and they were not as good as that. So thank you for your candid honesty and sharing that really thorough insight. We are going to have, no doubt, a fruitful discussion shortly around the work of the Arts Centre and other partners, but that is really, really lovely to hear. And I can tell you on a personal level, I teach 2 days a week, 16 to 18-year-olds, and I regularly overhear conversations about music and activities in the Arts Centre that happen midweek, and it's perhaps why not always as sharp in the morning on Wednesdays when I see them. But nevertheless, I recognise that this is part of life and that I was there too at your age enjoying midweek activities, and long may that continue to make our city centre the vibrant place that it is, because you can't do that in Chelmsford necessarily, can you? Ooh. Right, okay, with that, I'm aware that, thank you Esme, do you want to say anything else, by the way? Would you like to
We have another event coming up in April. It's on the 6th of April and it's going to be really good. So.
And the events you put on, are they open for everyone? Or is it predominantly
they're open for everyone. They're aimed at young people because we feel like there's not a lot of places for youth to go during the week and things like that, and especially with the increased phone use or technology use, we want to try and get people out of the house, having fun, bonding, becoming a part of a community. So that's why we put on the gigs.
Wonderful, wonderful. Thank you so much for coming tonight.
Thank you.
Safe journey home. Okay, well, I'm conscious we have the Director of Fairsight here, who has a later appointment tonight, so we will bring you for Miss Sally Shaw first to present to us around the work of Fairsight over the last 12 months. And as ever, a little bit of future gazing as well is never a bad thing. You want to sit there? Okay, yeah, that's fine. Yeah, it's up to you. Yeah, well, should we have everyone up now? Why not? Yeah, I think so. Yeah, why not? Thanks. And welcoming Councillor Scordis, the portfolio holder for all things culture and heritage and probably other things. I forget the long list, Lee, but thanks for coming. Yeah, why not? But we will. What we'll do, folks, is specifically look at Fairsight first, and then we'll have questions to Sally to enable Sally to get off to her next appointment. Okay, Councillor Scordis.
Thank you, Chair. And I think it's a real pleasure to introduce the three people that we have here that are kind of a triumvirate of culture in Colchester, as well as many of the other talent that we have. And we're really lucky to have their expertise and talent in Colchester. And you made the point, Chelmsford doesn't have this. I said before that we're the capital of culture in Essex, and I believe that. And we had a very positive meeting with the Arts Council, who made the same comment to us without being prompted, the fact that we are the centre of culture. And we have to remember how important this is, whether we use these facilities or not. I know some certainly do. I've seen Councillor Barber a few times at the beer festival at the Arts Centre, and I've seen a few of you at the Mercury. But we have to remember that this brings people into town town centres have changed massively and Colchester has changed massively. People used to come to town to do their shopping and spend all day here, maybe go to the cinema. That's changed since the noughties, around obviously online deliveries, financial crash in 2008 changed it very much so, and COVID has accelerated that. And town centres are much more different. But what these places offer is another reason for people to come to Colchester, whether that is from the rural areas, from our urban areas, or from outside Colchester, whether it be Tendring, Ipswich, Chelmsford, or further afield. And that helps our nighttime economy, as well as our daytime economy, with people maybe popping along going, actually, there's a lot more in Colchester we can do, whether they've come for First Sight, the Arts Centre, or the Mercury. But I'll pass it over to these guys and say to First Sight, and in any order you wish, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Scordis. Okay, is it Miss or Mrs. Sally Shaw?
Ms.
Ms. Okay, great to get that one. Ms. Shaw, your floor is yours.
Thanks very much. When I worked for London Underground, you have to do a health and safety induction week, and they taught us about the triangle of fire, which is fuel, heat and friction. That's how I see us. I don't know who's friction. Anyway, I wanted to start by saying thank you very much for our funding. It's extremely important, and it helps steady all of our ships through incredibly difficult times, so thank you very much. We've had, I think the last time we were here, 2 years ago, we were about to go into a bit of a tunnel of doom at First Sight. We were experiencing a huge increase in our utilities costs, which I think I reported. They went up overnight, from one bill to the next, from £7,000 a month to £27,000 a month because of the war in Ukraine. So I was flagging that. We have had 2 very, very, very difficult years, but we are now on the way out of that, thankfully. Just to sort of put that in context, in 24-25 financial year, you've got these notes in front of you as well, by the way, we had a deficit year of £350,000 because of those utilities costs. This financial year we're expecting a smaller deficit of 80k, which is much, much better, still a deficit but a much improved situation. And next financial year we anticipate a moderate surplus. So it has been a major, major U-turn, mostly within this financial year. The main source of stability for us in this financial year has been the sale of 15 Queen Street, which Colchester City Council supported us with massively. And without that sale going through in the way that it did, with the income generated from that sale, there probably wouldn't have been a First Sight to be scrutinised this year, if I can be really frank. We were down to the end of our reserves at the end of last financial year, and 15 Queen Street put pennies back in our pockets, and most importantly has bought us time to rebuild all of our commercial programmes, which I'll talk through in a minute, most of which are now showing some really positive signs of growth. The other thing that we've done is restructure quite a big chunk of the senior leadership team in order to effect some of that change within this financial year. And then the second half of this financial year has been really milking those changes that we've implemented. So I just wanted to say thanks for your support around 15 Queen Street. Lucy, I think in particular, and Claire bore the brunt of some very intense meetings at First Sight, but you listened to us and you responded brilliantly, so thank you very much. So that puts us into some context, but there's also loads of good things to share too. Whilst we have been managing a really horrendous financial situation, we've still delivered our programme really successfully. Some programme highlights for you. We've delivered 4 headline exhibitions and 4 supporting shows, if you get good right slide. The major exhibition this year has been Sue Webster's Birth of an Icon, which you can see at the moment. 74% of our visitors say that First Sight has a critical impact on providing access to high quality culture in Colchester. We're seeing national collections wanting to purchase works from our exhibitions. This is a really significant milestone for us. It means that we're commissioning and showing artists that have a significance to the whole country. So for example, the Arts Council collection is looking at Sue's work to go into their national collection. It's a slow conversation, but it's started. Also, representing galleries are starting to look at the artists that we show, which means that we are in a position to create careers for artists who are living and working regionally in a sustainable fashion for their long-term future. So the programme continues to place Colchester in the national cultural conversation year-round. Next slide. National profile for Colchester and local profile as well. So in terms of press generated this year, the equivalent advertising spend of the press generated by First Sight's programme is £3.4 million, and that's without something like Antiques Roadshow in the mix this year. So for example, Sue Webster's exhibition was on the front page of The Guardian along with the Beckhams. It's my favourite news article from First Sight so far, and contained a 2-page spread, and the following weekend it was the lead art review by Valdemar Janaszek, whose next review immediately after that was Tracy Emin. We're about to be in the art newspaper, which I can guarantee nobody here has read, but is the leading sector newspaper. They are doing a headline article which places Sue Webster with Rose Wiley at the Royal Academy and Tracy Emin at Tate. So First Sight is alongside the Royal Academy and Tate, which is brilliant. The approximate media reach, which I always find a little hard to believe. You see these numbers, digital world and all, 284 million people. We've also done a lot more recently around local attention through things like paying for high street advertising for the first time. We've been using the brilliant digital bus stop adverts, which has had a direct effect on our audience figures, and we've also been advertising at the train stations too. So we often get told, why aren't you being shown at the train station? And it's usually because we can't afford the advertising, but with the digital bus stations we can, and they've been brilliant. We can see a direct impact in people coming into the building. Growing philanthropy and donor support is a new world for First Sight. We have been lucky to receive a grant from the Fidelity Foundation, which I think Steve may mention later on. We've received £380,000 over 3 years in order to build philanthropy in our organisation. It is the biggest lever that we can pull to generate flexible income for First Sight. That means we can invest in our programmes. Most of the income we generate comes with conditions and expectations, but philanthropy, particularly from private donors, enables us to really invest in our programmes in ways that we can't usually. The impact of our Fidelity programme is that we've launched things like legacy programmes, and these have secured pledges in people's wills, which have obviously not been realised yet, but the value of the first 4 pledges is £450,000. So that's just 4 pledges. We obviously have to wait. And there's not another strategy behind that in accelerating the income, but that shows... be careful. We've also had some really amazing private donations from individuals living in the East Anglian region who are excited about our programming, and corporate sponsorship for things like Holiday Fun. I'll give you a very swift breakdown of our recent Big Give campaign, which we've done 3 Big Give campaigns now, and we just closed the last one on Monday. We raised just over £12,000. We reached our target 4 days before the closing deadline, which is only 3 days after the campaign opened. It's a 1-week campaign. We had 65 donors in total. The average donation was £91. We did a small charity dinner to generate most of the donations. 2 corporates donated, 1 existing and 1 new. 18 donors gave £100 or more, representing 90% of the target, and 45% of donors were from Colchester. So it's interesting data coming through who is supporting us. Our commercial performance, it's been a year of 2 halves. We've really had to work hard on laying new foundations across all of our programmes. To give you a couple of highlights, the cafe in particular was one of our biggest red flags. It has been for a long time, on and off. The cafe is always difficult. We introduced a new menu in October. Sales per day increased from £359 to £553 overnight. Our aim with the cafe, or our sort of vision if you like, is to be accessible, inclusive and to generate an increased sense of community, which is in line with our overall vision as an art gallery. So we are repurposing our cafe in line with our vision. Daily transactions have increased from 15% of visitors to 20%. It looks and feels busy every day, very popular with older generations. Possibly our biggest intervention in this direction has been to just make our prices extremely cheap. I think we are the cheapest cafe on the high street now. Average occupancy, on cinema, we've equally gone extremely cheap. We are the cheapest cinema in Colchester. We were before, and then Odeon started doing really amazing family deals, and that really kind of undercut us quite considerably, so we've gone cheaper again. And coupled with our membership scheme, that's really affected things brilliantly. So we introduced new prices in November. The average occupancy doubled from 6 to 13%, which is just 2% now below the national benchmarks, and we're on track to reach that national benchmark early in the new financial year. Average daily sales went from 15 tickets per day to 24 per day. Hires and the shop are our next areas of focus. We've seen little bumps and peaks of success in those areas, but they're not yet consistent. So we're working on those. So all of that creates the beginnings of a much more level foundation in terms of earned income that we can rely on track. Community impact. First Light continues to operate as a civic cultural space. Holiday fund delivered every school holiday again, despite all of our financial pressures. We're now at more than 32,000 free meals provided over the last 8 years. Creative activities are co-designed with the Community Advisory Group. Priority work with Colchester schools and families, and today we had over 600 children in the building as a result of that intensified work with children and families over many years. Audience data, again, a year of two halves for us. We were experiencing some challenging numbers earlier in the year, but as with our commercial activity, we've staged a number of interventions, particularly around how much and how we invest in marketing. We will reach our targets by the end of this year, but more importantly, our daily average is around 500 per day, and that's without a really major headline show like Grace and Perry, which means that we have an engineered audience that we can rely on whatever exhibition we put on, which means that we can maintain our diversity levels and our experimentation. We will still do headline shows, but it means that we can flex. So had we been able to take that approach at the beginning of the year, we would have achieved 150,000 visitors this year, which would have been our highest year on record. So that's a massive, massive shift for First Sight. And that's also a really, really amazing shift for Colchester, because that means that we can really drive visitors to the city centre. Supporting the local economy. This is for Councillor Smith, especially. I hope you like these numbers. I want to thank Steve Mannix, because these numbers come from our economic impact study that we've recently done across all of the MPOs, and we got together at Steve's encouragement to produce some updated figures. So at First Sight we employ 62 people, which is 50 full-time equivalent. In the last financial year, or this financial year, we spent £150,000 through local supply chains. I don't understand these figures, so I'm just going to read them out loud, okay? I'm at Art Degree Central over here. Gross spend of First Sight visitors in Colchester is £2.31 million. Net additional economic impact is 1.92 million GVA. For every £1 of combined public funding, Arts Council, Essex and Colchester, we generate £1.87. If you isolate just Colchester's investment, which is difficult to do because it's all interlocked, but if you do, it suggests that we contribute £17 per £1 spent, which is pretty good. And that is quite a long way in front of most other art galleries in the UK, about the same size as us, receiving about the same sort of money from local authorities. Sustainability, good news. We heard today that our Arts Council Creative Foundations Fund has been successful. Yes, embargoed, but I'm telling you because it's too good. It's £1 million to First Sight, much of which will be spent through local suppliers. we're doing three things. One really boring that no one will ever see, but is incredibly important. We're going to reset our building management system, a sentence I never thought I would write or read ever in my entire career. This means a reduction in our lovely utilities costs and also a reduction in our carbon footprint, and it's the next chapter on from our lighting programme that we did over the last couple of years. The second project is to reinstate high-tech and sustainable gallery environmental conditions. This means, for those nerds out there, it means that we can borrow really, really, really valuable works and really old works, and we can look after them properly, which means that we can do much, much, much higher value exhibitions in the centre of Colchester. It's really, really cool. It also means that we can put a ticketing point at the front of the galleries should we be doing exhibitions that are ticketable and have valued works that people would like to pay for, which we are already doing a little bit, but not on a consistent level. So that's really, really exciting. The third really cool thing is that we will be converting one of our galleries into a digital immersive gallery. So that will be all the walls and the ceiling entirely covered in LED panels, super high tech. It means it's a limitless space. It means you can show all manner of creative things. It's the only one of its kind outside of London. And it's an extremely hireable commercial offer, as well as a creative experimentation space. So that is extremely exciting. It's a really brilliant project. We've got 18 months to deliver it. Wish me luck. Looking ahead, First Sight is now positioned for its next phase. We have 2 years before the next MPO round starts. We will be applying for our MPO funding in the autumn of this year. We will be talking about collaborations amongst our MPO colleagues. We will be looking at an increased scale of ambition on the back of our capital investment. So you will be seeing a programme of exhibitions with some really big headline artworks and artists coming to Colchester, on the back of which I hope we can get together as a city and start thinking in a much more connected way. We're also launching in May this year a new national competition. It's called the Artist Prize. It's going to occur every 2 years. Anyone who considers themselves to be an artist can enter. There's a teeny tiny administrative fee of about £10 to £14. That accumulates to a lot of money. We think between 5,000 and 10,000 artists may apply from across the UK. There will be an exhibition of 20 shortlisted artists in this time next year. There's an internationally significant panel of judges. The winning artists will receive a solo exhibition in the following year at First Sight and a £30,000 prize, which is £5,000 more than the Turner Prize. So lots coming up at First Sight. It's been hideous, but there's lots of really fantastic things coming out of the woodworks finally. That's the end of me. All right.
Thank you. I'm sure there'll be lots of questions. That was a very whistle-stop snapshot view, but it does sound positive from a difficult couple of years. I've got a couple of questions, very straightforward. I mean, first of all, better declare the interest. My mum regularly attends the monthly knit and natter sessions with Alderman Higgins, and for my mum not to complain about the price of a cup of tea is a good sign that you're doing something right in the cafe. Sorry, Mum, she's not watching, don't worry. The National Museum of the Year award was pretty hard to top, but I have to say, watching Antiques Roadshow was pretty special. You know, I got a really fuzzy feeling when I saw that episode. So well done for facilitating that. I know how much difficult it would have been for TV companies taking over your life. My question would be: is there any consideration towards something for Constable 250th anniversary this June? Obviously, there's lots of things happening all over the area, and then I think Gainsborough's got a big birthday coming up as well. And then the other question I've got is: if you had a magic wand, what would you put in the building underneath Curzon to complement what you do? If you had a magic wand, because it's quite sad, isn't it? It's been vacant for so long.
It's a bit depressing. Constable. My favourite fact about the Constable anniversary is that we spent about 2 years in conversation with the National Gallery about borrowing the Haywain. And when we first got into contact with them, they didn't know it was the anniversary of the Haywain. So we actually birthed the entire anniversary programme of the National Gallery. And unfortunately, they decided, I think they've lent it. It's going to Ipswich, which is great, and I have no problem with that. I think it's brilliant. It needed to come to this neck of the woods. So it's not coming to us. We're not doing anything specific to that, partly because lots of other people will be, and our remit is really contemporary. We do show older stuff sometimes, but it's about contemporary, and there's plenty of other constable
And you've got
stuff
infrastructure
going on.
coming in, which in the end will enable
Yeah,
6-footers to arrive.
they'll be bigger than 6 foot, I hope. The doors can cope. Your other question was about
Your magic wand.
my magic wand.
And what would you put in the Curzon building?
I would be inspired by Esme, actually, and say we need a space for young people to programme art exhibitions, and we probably need better studio space right in the city centre. I know we've got the police station, but that's a brilliant experimental space for people to do all sorts of things and really test and experiment risky stuff that we can't necessarily do at First Sight or even at the Minories. So an experimentation space for young people would be brilliant.
Okay, members. Councillor Smith, did I see your hand earlier?
You did. That was to declaring interest. The mention of the Queen Street premises. I was heavily involved in the purchase and sale of that.
Oh, were you?
At the time.
Oh, at the beginning,
at
the original purchase. Well, I thank you too for that. You've saved our bacon, honestly. Thank you.
I'm encouraged at the financial information. The reason why I asked for it was that, given that we're facing our government reform, it's likely that any funding will be coming from a new council,
Yep.
Which will not have a majority of councillors from Colchester on it. And we'll need to produce hard evidence as to the amount of income and business it brings in to the area to benefit the entire area.
Yeah.
To make sense to them. Otherwise, I could understand councillors from Clacton or Braintree looking at it and saying, well, what's in it for us? But I think the facts that you're producing say how much income generating lots of areas to like on that, and I would just encourage you to make sure that the utility bills don't get into the same state as they did before.
Oh my God.
Thank you.
Don't worry about that. Yeah.
Councillor Rowe.
Thank you, Chair. I just want to sort of echo all the fantastic work, everything absolutely wonderful. With regard, I think I saw the stat with regards to media reach, 284 million.
Yes.
I'm assuming some of that's online as well.
Most of that will be digital. It's like impressions. They talk about impressions, which is a very elusive term.
Yeah, agreed.
So I don't really like using it. I prefer if you had to pay for that as advertising, that's a much more tangible
understood.
fact.
But I suppose, thinking of that's the impressions, is there any sort of view from your perspective of how you could look to monetize that as well? And you looking into those areas and sort of how, because I know that people can make money out of YouTube and various other bits and pieces. Is it something you're investigating?
Yes, absolutely. So we have a much better sort of data management system across all of our programs now, which shows us when you spend £1 over here on marketing, it generates this number of people in through the front doors, and we now know what percentage of people spend money, and we know the percentage of what they spend. So all of that goes round and around in a circle, and it means that every penny extra we spend on marketing, you can guarantee it as income generation in the building. It also means income generation on the high street too. It's not just in Colchester, in First Sight where that's being spent. It's everywhere.
Deputy Chairman, Councillor Willits.
Yes, Chairman, it all sounds magnificent, and I guess most of it is magnificent. However, we're talking the talk, and I ask whether we actually walk the walk, because I'm looking at the UK City of Culture bids, and the city which is clearly missing for some reason, and I just don't understand why it's missing, is Colchester, of course. And if what we say is going to, or hear what is being said, is actually going to happen, surely we must be up there at the top. And when we see on TV some of the miserable cities that think they're in with a chance, and then we compare with the brochures which we got on the table this evening, you think there can only be one winner, yet we never entered. I mean, is there a reason why we're developing this very significant approach to arts in Colchester, but we're not actually putting our name forward? As if we're really sure that what we're doing, is the greatest, then it should be proclaimed the greatest, not just by us, but by those who are looking on the National Arts Council and all the other people, the list of worthies on the press release, who actually judge what is going to be the City of Culture. So have we missed a trick, or have we purposefully not put anything forward?
Hold the line, members. So Councillor Willis was quite disparaging about the birth town of mine, which is Ipswich, which has put in a bid. Let's perhaps hear from the portfolio holder on the specific question on our bid status.
Yeah, of course. So there's a weird criteria this year. We cannot bid because we are no longer a town. Only towns are bidding this year, which is why Ipswich are on there. I think Stevenage were one of them, Milton Keynes. So this year, I don't know why they've done that, but I think it was more to spread the load. But it's certainly something we can look at for future bids. Certainly, as I say, I think we are the capital of Essex for culture, so certainly one I'm happy to discuss with the team and our partners moving forward.
Mr. Mannix.
Just to very quickly respond, Councillor Willis, we can go for City of Culture, but the investment from each of those local authorities is probably about £1 million in order to get onto the table. At least.
So our chair...
should £1 million be available, of course, we'd be very happy to facilitate a bid.
Our chair, Rosie Millard, was the chair of Hull City of Culture, and she'll tell you it's a lot more than £1 million and some. And it goes on beyond that original bid as well. It's a huge amount of money, so I think we'd all be up for it if there's the cash on the table to make something spectacular happen, but it takes money.
Could I make a suggestion that Councillor Scordis takes a moment of reflection on this conversation and maybe for the benefit of members just circulate the facts, because actually what Councillor Willis has asked is very reasonable, but equally if it is going to cost several £1 million, I think members might want to be aware of that, but it's a very good thing to highlight. Councillor Willis, do you have any more questions?
Well, I don't really see it as a separate issue, although I don't understand a lot about the arts. But the sort of work which we need to do to qualify surely is just the sort of work that we've been hearing about in Sally's presentation already. So now I'm not sure it's a separate 1 million unless you've got information to show that we've got to conjure up another million and how it's going to end. Also, looking at the list for 2029, there seem to be quite a few on it who claim to be cities, just like we claim to be a city. Milton Keynes, for instance, claims it's a city, but there it is on the list. So, I don't really understand, but I welcome a briefing note on it, certainly.
I think Councillor Scordis is going to share more insights into future opportunities to bid for culture status. We are a city, though. It has been approved. I wouldn't want you.
I think a king was involved, wasn't he?
Right. Councillor Rowe.
I was just going to say, sorry, apologies. So is there two? Is there one for Town of Culture and one for City of Culture? Is that what it is? Thank you.
So it's just this year, for some reason, it's towns, but they're calling it City of Culture.
There's a dual, sorry to butt in, there's a dual process. You can apply if you're a city, but they've opened up a new scheme you can apply to town. But I would suggest that the town is incredibly competitive. I think at the last count, about 268 applicants.
You can also go as a place as well, which is a collection of cities and towns.
But you'd still need £1 million for both.
Whichever way you go, you need
folks.
a decent lump sum.
Yeah, okay.
Between us, we've been involved in City of Culture bids in the beginning or the middle or the end. Basically, the million is about getting a bid team together.
Yeah.
And it's about officer time, it's about infrastructure, it's about getting ready, and the bid and the PR, etc., etc., etc.
Okay. Councillor Scordis is going to share some information in a friendly fashion in his time. That's good. Members, any other questions for Ms Shaw, because she has another appointment this evening? Councillor Rowe?
One quick question. With regards to the national competition,
Are you going to enter?
No. Absolutely terrible at
You
drawing.
can just give me 10 quid.
Yeah, well, yeah, I might do. You never know. I thought it was 14.
10 to 14. Depends on when you
Well,
apply.
exactly. Okay, fine. All I was going to say was you hear stories of these competitions where people enter in, sort of silly, bits that children have done and things like that. Who's going to adjudicate it, and will we be making sure that doesn't sort of happen?
Well, as far as you can, there's an age limit on it, so it'll be 18 plus. But even so, people will put things in. It's contemporary art, so there's always that discussion. My kids could have done it; they probably didn't. We could go down that wormhole. There's 2 rounds of judges, so to get from 10,000 applicants down to 200 shortlist, we are putting together a pool of 100 judges from across museums and galleries from across the UK, and then there's a last round of about 10 judges who are the really kind of known names. At that point, there'll be some weird stuff, I can guarantee it. But
yeah, exactly. I understand, and I understand it's difficult. But I just wanted to just raise it because it's the sort of thing that ends up in the paper, and
well, we kind of want it in the paper.
Well, maybe I don't know. I suppose it depends how we want to market ourselves, doesn't it?
All right.
Okay. Thank you very much. I think, given that you have to go, we will let you go. With positive acclamation, everything is sounding very positive. So thank you for coming on and sharing what you've shared. And you will have to come back here regularly because obviously we here for a previous portfolio holder agreed that your funding grant would be more than just an annual basis, and it would be linked up with the NPO cycles, and obviously 2028 looms. But beyond that, you might need to come back in and remind whoever sat in this building then that you would like more than just a year's guarantee. Okay, right. Thank you very much, Mr. Shaw. While you are departing, we'll add a bit of fun into the mix. So, Anthony Roberts, heads or tails? It is tails. Would you like to go first, or would you like to give way to Mr. Mannix? Okay, right then. That's what we'll do. So, Colchester Arts Centre in St Mary's Church, next to the Mercury Theatre by the Roman Wall. Famous for hosting a little band called Blur not too long ago, and a number of other things. Mr. Roberts, you have the floor.
Thank you very much. So, echoing Sally's thanks for the investment that you give every year, it's a hugely appreciated sum of money, and thank you very much. So, now, I've been told to be brief, and I'm told to be crisp, and I've got a number of slides, so I'm going to rattle on, and I shall do my best not to keep you too long. So let's crack on then. There's our cover of our most recent brochure, Colchester Arts Centre, Never Knowingly Understood, our strapline. So, next slide, please. How much did you give it? £48,175, and what do you get for that? Next slide, please. So, essentially, we give you a live music and performance venue. See that sticker there? That's just a pastiche of the old Musicians Union yellow sticker that you used to see it, I don't know, if people of a certain age, on guitar cases and amplifiers, maybe in stickers of windows. Keep it live. And that's what we are. We're a live performance and music venue. So, like Esme was saying, we're not interested in screens, digital age, YouTube, TikTok, all that. It's about being in the space at that time with those people. When the house lights go down and the stage lights come up, and you're in that room, in that space, that magic that happens, that visceral excitement, the adrenaline that you feel when the musicians walk out and start the first number, that's what we're about, and that's what we give you. And that shared experience, that sense of ritual and uplift that you get for being in that space, that magic that makes it happen. I don't know what it is, I don't know how you describe it, but that magic is what we're all about. Next slide, please. And we do it in this beautiful building, and it's important that it's a beautiful building, it's important that it's a historic building. Next slide, please. Because this is a little band that, if you look closely, I think you might be in this. That's the Blur gig there. But I want to show you what it looked like. And I love this photograph. This photograph is taken from the stage, looking out from the stage at a gig that was celebrating the legacy of Nick Alexander, the person who was shot in the terrorist attack in France. Everything about that picture tries to illustrate what I've been talking about being in the space and the time. I love the guitar, I love all those people. They're all having such a great time. All the tattoos, the mosh pit, it's all great fun. So, at the heart and soul of us, what we're trying to do, if you cut us through the middle, we're interested in platforming and promoting new people. That's new choreographers, new bands, new comedians. Next slide, please. And across that platform, of course, there'll be some people that will have all performed at the Arts Centre when absolutely no one knew them or had heard of them. Graham Norton, Bill Bailey, Harry Hill, Catherine Tate, Susie Eddie Izzard, and of course Coldplay, the biggest selling band in the world now, 200 quid at the Colchester Arts Centre. Don't think it was even sold out, but you know. And the phrase that we use is that you play the venue twice, once on the way up, and once on the way back down. It's good to be back. Some of the people do come back. Next slide, please, where they're still. So this year we presented Susie Iddard's one-person version of Hamlet, 35 quid a ticket. That's a high ticket price for us, Steve. And it was sold out in 10 minutes. It was great to have them back in the space. Next slide, please. This little band that we mentioned called Blur came back, of course, to the Colchester Arts Centre, having been nurtured on our stages. Next slide, please. But it's not just performance, it's not just gigs, it's not just comedy. Someone mentioned the beer festival earlier. We do beer festival twice a year, we do frock swap, we do jumble sales, we do games fairs, there's weddings, there's wakes, so it is a vibrant space that's used in the day as well as the evening gigs that we've talked about. I'm just going to talk to you a little bit now. So that's our core business, that's what happens at the venue. Lots of you have been there, this isn't new to you. But just to remind you that that's the exciting, that's what we spend your £48,175 on. But we do work outside of that to supplement the core venue. Next slide, please. This is a little project that we did with some funding from Future Arts Centres that gave us £15,000 to celebrate VE Day and VJ Day. But to not just do it looking backwards, but to do it looking forwards as well. So we brought together the Gujarati community, the African Families UK, our neighbours at Bolton Gardens, the Autism Anglia, and of course the Nepalese community, the Gurkhas, to celebrate that day in a meaningful way. Were you there? No, you were. No, all right, okay. And then in the after, so we had this meal, a lovely meal, keep it simple, and we had a massive 18-piece swing band, the old Glenn Miller swing band, in the afternoon for the tea and cake and stuff like that. So it's an addition to the programme. We also, next slide please, that's just some fun shots from that day. The one down in the bottom right is the Uday, is the guy from the Nepalese community. He's a great, I love this guy Uday. He's one of the reasons I like him, he's shorter than me and has a tremendous energy about him, and that was a candle celebration for the Gurkhas that died across both worlds. So it was supposed to be poignant. It was tried to do it in a way that was kind of like not just looking backwards but looking forward as well. There's some pictures from that particular day. Next slide please. We also have some presence in the city centre. There's 4 spaces that we now manage in the city centre. There's 2 of them. That's the Lawrence Walker Gallery and the Colchester Arts Centre Community Centre. They're both in Priory Walk. You know, I've lived in Colchester a long time. We know that Priory Walk has that kind of turnover of shops where people feel quite depressing. But when you invite arts venues to occupy them, and we work with Rachel Walton from Afrikaners UK as our cultural ambassador there, so that they're global majority-led spaces, they become animated, they become lively, they become outward-looking, and in an age when the retail shopping is declining, obviously, then we need to rethink our city centre spaces and ways that we can do that, and I think this is a micro example of how that might look going forwards. Next slide please. That's just an illustration of some things that are going on in those spaces, in those city spaces now. Next slide please. We also do outreach at Christmas time, and we offer to the community a little show, a reading of Christmas Carol. We offer it out to churches, local communities, village halls. We say that we'll come and do the show, and then you can put money in the bucket, or you can sell tickets, or you can do that. And so these are some of the places. That's me at the Colchester Castle, raising money for the Mayor's charity. But I also went to Enoch House, Alfreda House, Level Best Cafe. I was at the Dragonfly Lounge, where a young stage manager looked after me and helped me with a glass of water, very demanding. And Cranmere Court I went to. I've just put that one on because that was a first for me. Halfway through the second half, I was doing it with about 15, 20 older people, and halfway through the second half, it was a first because I thought this is the first and only time that I've been performing to a room full of people who are all, 100% of them, fast asleep. I could have just cut to the end and finished off. But those are some of the charities that we raised money for: Open Road, Cancer Research, and that was about £15,000 worth this year. Next slide, please. We were also piloted an event in St Botolph's Priory with a comedy event, which we had a little bit of help from the Community Fund, had 2k to put towards it, and we booked Russell Kane and some other comedians. It rained, but you know what? It was all right. British Spirit saw us through, and it was an interesting, because that's a fantastic space. I think the star of the show that day, apart from the guy who runs St Botolph's, who's an interesting character, it was very good fun, but the star of the show that day was the environment, the space. That's St Botolph's. I know there's all plans to reinvigorate it, but it was sold out, 450 people, and it was a really nice place to work, and we're going to come back and we're going to do it a bit longer. This year we're going to do 4 days instead of 1 day. That's the idea there. Right, cracking on, a bit more some stats for you. So 70% of our income, got a bit weird that slide. Anyway, 70% of our income is self-generated, and that's ticket sales, hiring and bar income. Next slide, please. This is the one bit of stats that I picked out of that report that Steve's helped initiate. It's full of really good stuff. I don't understand it all. I'm a bit savvy as well, but my headline figure, and it's not me telling this is kind of like data that's been put in, this DC research, economic heritage culture. But so for every pound of that 48,175, it generates £13.70 of spend in the local community. How that's worked out, I don't know, but it's not me just making it up. It's kind of like, it's there. Next slide, please. Population of Colchester is 200,202. If you put that 48,000 into there, then it costs them less than half a p per week to pay for the art centre. Right, next slide, please. How many people come? 45,000 people that we know of. They're ticket buyers. People come to other things like the beer festival that you can add on. That's probably another 10,000, but it's probably guesswork. But that's who we know. That's a little pie chart of how it's broken down. Most people come to gigs, but there's beer festival, fairs, comedy, etc. Next slide, please. Where do they come from? Straight down the middle. This is postcode analysis. Straight down the middle. 50% come from the borough, the council, the city council. Do we call it borough now? I don't know. Inside the boundaries. And 50% come outside. That's just, it's as clean as that. Next slide, please. Who are they? This is a bar chart of the indices of social deprivation inside the city of Colchester, with the poorest at the left-hand side and the richest on the right-hand side. And you see that the highest bar chart is from the second most deprived division there. And if you put those two, the first and the second, that's the left, and the next along the left, those two together, then over a third of the entire ticket buyers, this is the ticket buyers, Colchester Arts Centre, come from the lowest two divisions of social. So this, I just wanted to kind of address straight on that it's an elitist, sort of educated, white, middle class thing. People like me that go along all the time. There's lots of people like me that go along, but it's a much more nuanced, and I think music is a language which particularly is a universal language and speaks across those divisions. Next slide, please. That's just an illustration of another illustration of the bar chart. Next slide, please. Digital output that Sally was talking about. So in the COVID, I started the Daily Poetry Project, and thinking it would last about 3 weeks. And I grew up this great huge beard. But 532 poems later, and a beard that was literally almost down to my knees, we stopped doing it, and I thought, right, I don't want to do another poem again. But after a while, of course, it had such reach and such impact, and there's a lot of people, those 45,000 come, that's great, but there's lots of people who don't come to the Arts Centre, and how do we reach them, how do we talk to them? This poetry project is every week. Join the mailing list, you'll get a poem 7 o'clock in the morning. You don't have to click on to hear me reading it, but it's an option if you want to do that. There's 39,963 recipients, that's the emails, and then I think under that there's a stat there talking about how many, so that's 104,902 social media hits. I'm not really sure what that means as well. Quickly, moving on then quickly, just have to mention our award-winning toilets. Look at those toilets. It's difficult to get people out of the toilets back into the show sometimes, even though there is a show going on there. Next slide, please. That's our loos again with the you wash your hands and the grey water, which is very lovely, isn't it? Right, next slide, please. We deliver this all with 4 full-time paid staff and 4 part-time staff. That's the entire programme is delivered by that staff. So it's a lean outfit. It's a skeleton staff, but that's what we do to deliver it. In our business, there are a lot of freelance and casual people, and they're nearly all local, so there's about 20 of them. Next slide, please. And associate artists are Frozen Light, who make work specifically for profound multiple learning difficulties people. Next slide, please. Youth Board, you've heard about the Youth Board. Next slide, please. Our volunteers, shout out for our volunteers. I didn't have the stat at the time. I said to Joe, if you paid our volunteers minimum wage, what would that amount to? And it amounts to £65,182. So, you know, we talk about donors, people. Not everyone has a lot of dough that they can give you, but what they can give you is time. And they come in and when you come to the Arts Centre, it'll be a volunteer who checks your ticket, it'll be a volunteer that gives you a drink. And I think that feeds into the whole holistic experience anyway. So big shout out for volunteers. Next slide, please. Here's a little graphic that puts together what your strategic priorities are and where the Arts Centre might fit in within that. A vibrant place, inclusive community, health and active lives, and thriving economy. I think we contribute to all those priorities. Next slide, please. It's not just the £48,175 that you give us. You also give us the space as well. And our current lease runs up until 2029. When I came here in 1991, I didn't think I would be negotiating the lease after that. But you've been extremely helpful. We just need a little bit more help from you guys to get it over the line before the whole council changes into something else that may or may not be quite so kind in the way that that lease might sit. But we thank you for that. Just a couple more things. Next slide, please. I wanted to give a shout out to this guy. He's been the chair of the Colchester Arts Centre since I've been here for over 40 years. He stood down last year. It's the legendary Nigel Hildreth, MBE. He's still very active, still going strong, running the Colne Valley Youth Orchestra, running the Teddy Bears Picnic that he's in, running the rock prom for the young bands that comes in. He's an absolute legend, and he stood down next year. Now, to get rid of me, you'll need an entirely different approach to get me out of that building. Next slide, please. That's the only way you'll be getting rid of me. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Dr. Roberts. Very impressive. Very impressive. I've done some recent market testing myself, and I've ticked off all the things you have mentioned. Obviously, the best toilets in the city. It blew my 8-year-old child's mind going for a wee in your toilets. Very good. And also, you didn't mention it, but I think it's still the case that if you look in the refrigerators behind the bar, you'll see beer brewed on the outskirts of Colchester, and you have local supply chains wherever you can, which is lovely. Wednesday remains your pay what you like day, which is great. Pay what you can afford. Microphone, please, Doctor.
So, you know, price isn't always a barrier to people coming. You'd think it would be, but it's not. But it can be. You know, I'm not dismissing it. So we do 40 shows a year where you do pay what you can afford. They're Wednesdays. Pay what you can afford doesn't mean it's free. There's a big difference between pay what you can afford and what's free. And at those events, we introduce them and we say, thank you for coming, pay what you can afford. If you don't know what you can afford 100th of what you've earned this week. So if it's £500, that's a fiver. But if it's nothing, then it's guilt-free as well as being free. Thank you for coming and taking the risk on the show. Enjoy the show, and that's what we say.
Very good. I have to address it. I mean, the last slide there you showed us was of you in a coffin. I mean, by your own admission, it's a very lean skeleton staff, and you rely heavily on volunteers, goodwill, and freelancers. And Lord forgive the day when you're not here and upright, Doctor. But if that time does come, can we be confident that there is going to be some succession planning of some sort? Because there must be an awful lot of knowledge in your quite large head.
Yeah. Well, I don't know if you remember, but I did take a little cameo year out when I was at First Sight for a while, and Stafford stepped up, who's our executive producer. We also have an associate producer as well, and he took a lot of credit. He said he had a better year than one of my years, and I said, no. I wrote the song, you just played it. You know, I'm the composer. But seriously, I think it's a robust organisation. I think it's able to roll with the various crises. I mean, all of us in the arts now, I mean, Sally, me and Steve here, we are now sailing into uncharted waters. It's never been so uncertain. And uncertain doesn't mean bad, it just means it's uncertain. We don't know what the Arts Council is going to look like after the Hodge report. We don't know what the local council is going to look like after this. There's lots of variables that are in there that I haven't lived before. But I think what our job is to be flexible, sustainable, robust, confident, and then we can ride through the various waves that break on our little ship.
I will come to members. Just one more bite of the cherry for me. You mentioned the lease. So I'm not across the detail of this one, but I am aware that we obviously own the church. When does the lease expire?
Church is actually owned by the church. It's leased to the council and subleased to the Colchester Arts Centre. And there is a division of maintenance on that lease at the moment, this and that. And the division of labour means that the council takes the bill for some of it and we take the bill for some of it. What we need, and the bit that the council take, there is a clause within the lease that say that if you should be minded, you could charge that back to the Arts Centre at the end of the year. Now, it's never happened. There's never been a precedent for it. There's always been. But with a new administration coming in, it might be that would be enacted. And so we just want to bottom that out, make sure that we're not going to be liable that the divisions done it. And we're very nearly there. David's been very helpful in that. The estates team have been cooperative. Lee's been cooperative. But we'd just like to get it over the line before the next administration comes in.
So how can we get it over the line? Councillor Scaldis, what's happening?
Negotiations are ongoing, is all I can say, but we've gotten from when I first met Anthony about this, we're in a much better place, I think, and it's just getting it over the line. As say, estates team is involved, and just making sure we can get it through the estates board, and we should be there as long as Ant and team are happy.
Okay, sounds like it's a mutual priority, and it sounds like a logical step. Councillor Rowe.
Thank you. 2 questions. Will it be completed this year? What sort of time frame can you give us?
So it should be done this year because we obviously need to relook at renewing the lease. So even though the lease is 2029, obviously we want to get this done before LGR and before we get into that precarious situation. So we are hoping very soon, but I can't give you any ETA. A lot of this is with the estates board, and I was hoping we would have had this done before Christmas, but there's negotiations, as I say.
Okay, so you can't guarantee before the elections or anything along those lines?
Councillor Rowe, I'm just going to pause you. Mr Barker's just going to step forward and give us an insight into this one. Sorry, I didn't see you at the back there, but I'm very grateful that you're here.
You're absolutely fine. I happen to have an update from estates, so I thought it might be helpful. And they are working on it. You're absolutely right. Given the historic nature of the building and the scope of the information needed, so what we are doing is understanding what works need to be done to the building over a period of time. He says, and this was on the 9th of March, be a good month until the figures come through. There are not very many consultants in this field, so we're in the queue, but we're waiting for them to do the work. And then as soon as they've done that, it will come back to Estates Board and then through to decision. So it'll be at least a month before we get the information back. So just to manage expectations, I'd probably say a couple of months.
Thank you very much.
Second question.
Yeah, second question, very quickly. If the council chose to take the money back, as you pointed out, where would that leave you financially, just to sort of get a bit of fluff around it?
Yeah, it would be tricky because, I mean, you know, it's how you look at £48,000. Someone turned up at any of our doors with £48,000. Happy days, isn't it? You know, but in the grand scheme of things, where does that sit? What that actually buys us is not just the 48k, it's validation. And it's validation particularly with Arts Council England, who gives us about 225. So it's a kind of like, in terms of the blocks, it's a kind of foundation stone. That's the way it works.
Thank you very much. Okay, members, before we move on to Mr. Mannix, I see Councillor Willits. Anyone else? No. Okay, I'm going to give Councillor Willits the last word in the scrutiny of Dr. Roberts.
The slide you showed with the 5 bars, the various income cohorts, I think I'm in bar 4, which has the minimum amount of attendance at the Arts Centre. I'd probably take an unpopular view, and I'm sure it's been shared around the scrutiny table, but I don't come into Colchester all that much. I don't find it a particularly attractive place to come into, and I think that probably represents why there are that depression of various groups. I also live in the rural areas, which means, you know, it's a decision: do you come in? Certain artistic activities will get me in. The panto, I will take my life into my own hands and come in. The occasional performance in the Arts Centre, I can't come into. You're running at capacity at the moment. You're very town-centric or city-centric, as we describe ourselves nowadays. And Colchester City is a big place, and when we have a unitary authority, it will be even bigger. So to what extent is it your strategic plan to remain purely in the arts centre that you have at the moment, as opposed to going further out? For instance, Stane Park, which is very convenient for the area in which I live, has no fine arts ever. It's okay if you enjoy going to B&Q, but if you want a concert or you know, something to go to in the evening. So what is your view on providing the sort of artistic repertoire which you have in the Arts Centre being moved to a certain extent to the Northern Gateway, which I think is attracting the sort of people you have in bars 4 and 5, to Stane Park, which would certainly attract cohorts 4 and 5? Or do you see your organisation as forever just being centred around the Arts Centre church that you have?
Yeah, I mean, I think we are opportunistic. And I don't mean that as that we're just short-termism, but when there's opportunities like St Botolph's come up, you know, we're ready to pounce on it. And I think that for a while now, we've been looking, and we put stuff on in the cinema at Sally's Things. We put stuff on in the evening sometimes there. But if we could build an art centre and put it next door to where you live, we will be able to program it and sell tickets. That's the problem. You know, we've got more artists trying to get gigs at us. We've got more. We can sell tickets. We can populate it. We wouldn't necessarily be able to do all the weird niche stuff that we sometimes do. You know, the kind of like Radio 3 after 10 o'clock kind of weird stuff. But we can. But we would certainly be able to do that. And when there's community centres like we go to for, you know, I mean, I went all over with Christmas Carol. We went here, there and everywhere. If there was a space that was close to you, that would be the occasion when the Arts Centre would be there. But I like to think that we're lean, we're fleet of foot, we're imaginative, we're creative, and when we see an opportunity or when someone's got a suggestion, that we can listen to them. And because we're smaller than, it's like you've got a big, like driving a big tank. If you've got to change, you have to think about it 2 years ahead. But we're not like that. We're a little bit more fleet of foot. So I think anything like that, we'd be excited to explore.
So will that sort of considerations appear in your business plan for the next 3 years? Will it be a sort of serious expansion, or is it just if an opportunity arises, you might possibly consider it for a one-off event, as opposed to moving culture out of the town centre? And I appreciate St Botolph's, but I mean, St Botolph's is still within the Roman walls, as opposed to sort of Tiptree or Mersey or the places which are way out, and it's really impossible to get into, particularly to the young people.
I think it would be more the second, be more opportunistic than a strategic decision to try and populate a wider, unless it was with a specific project like Christmas Carolers, which is very one person. You can take that up, put that down. You don't have to kind of like put in PAs and things. Or we did an event in Jaywick recently for older people, like an older person's cabaret afternoon, that kind of thing. Those things kind of like were quite doable. But there's not a strategic. We must expand the operation. It's not like we're a brand that we want to kind of take on, but we're open to invitation. We're open to opportunity.
Okay, Dr. Roberts, I think we'll move on. Are you staying here to hear Mr. Mannix?
Of course I'm staying here. That's why I bought my ticket for this.
Good. Okay, folks, if we're okay, we'll crack on. I'm conscious that we'll need to have a break, but let's give Mr. Mannix at least 10 minutes to present, if he wants to. Go for it.
Happy to. Good evening. Best till last, as they say. No. And are we ready on the slides? Oh, sorry.
I'll just fill the airtime while we're getting the slides up and just acknowledge that you've come here tonight, as did Ms. Shaw, with a very positive snapshot of your organisations, and that's great. But I am reflecting on how blooming difficult it is in life at the moment. And I was mildly disparaging of Chelmsford earlier, but actually I went to Hotbox the other night on a Monday evening, and they do amazing things there. Fatboy Slim's been there, Boxer Rebellion more recently, wonderful stuff. But it's really sad what's happening out there. There's less bands, there's less youngsters working. I dare say there are all sorts of other pressures. But I think we ought to restate the importance of live and being able to connect and have that ritual in a physical space, which you guys are the custodians of, and through our support. Okay, right, there we go, airtime.
So, good evening, thank you very much. Just to reiterate, to thank all of you for your support of the Mercury in the last couple of years, and in fact over the decades. Next slide. Just to give you an indication here, a bit of a shot of the Panto, as Councillor Willits has just mentioned. Another record here, just under 40,000 people came through the doors, and our Panto Dame won the UK Panto Dame of the Year at the UK Panto Awards. Next slide, please. Just to put things in context a little bit, the creative sector and culture is worth £160 billion now, and the sector grew by 4.6%. That's 4 times faster than the wider economy itself. And 10% of the high growth opportunities are creative, outnumbering life sciences and advanced manufacturing. It's really important to know this. And in Essex, and these latest stats from the County Council and DCMS, visual arts and performing arts have seen a 14% growth in the last 2 years. Next slide, please. Just to answer your question, Chair, the challenges I've never faced in 40 years in the sector, it's like a storm coming at us from every direction, exactly like the council, in terms of overheads, cost of raw materials, utilities, etc. It was double the price this year to build the same panto set as last year. Wood, steel, etc. Stock, as you know, we prioritise buying things locally, and a lot of our suppliers are under pressure too. And we are having to dig into reserves in order just to sustain the building. So recognising that together we're in the challenges. Next slide, please. We were presented 403 performances against a target of 369, 75% average capacity. I won't read all the stats there, you've all seen the presentation, but the attendees to date, that was when I wrote this application of 125,000, it's now shot up to 132,000, and we'll come on to that in a minute. But like Ant and the Arts Centre and First Sight, we also have unticketed events outside in our fantastic piazza, and of course work on tour, which I'll come on to mention about in a second. Next slide, please. Audiences and user feedback, I'll leave you to have a look at those, which gives you the range of ticketed opportunities and non-ticketed opportunities that are right the way throughout the programme in the year. And Councillor Osborne, being on the front line in the box office, can also tell you how those tickets are distributed to groups in the lower socio-economic areas of Colchester. Next slide, please. Our creative engagement work, so this is work that happens in Colchester and then across Essex, but mainly in Colchester. 20,000 children and young people and adults took part. 3,467 sessions. We have a teachers forum. Our young company, each week, 299 children and young people take part in that. And Esme, who you met earlier, was Mole in Wind in the Willows this last weekend for 120 kids on stage, which 4 shows totally sold out. And our work with seniors that happens across all the building on a Thursday, engaged just over 1,000 people. Next slide, please. And then our development work, which is working with local artists. So we've worked with just over 1,000 artists engaged in our Mercury Creatives programme. This is where we're offering support, advice, masterclasses and mentoring. That's 78 creative businesses supported. And that's £800,000 worth of new investment into Colchester. And we've launched 4 new apprenticeships in technical theatre, our very first in wardrobe, and 2 in catering in partnership with the Institute. Next slide, please. So the building itself, as you know, we've invested, next slide, we've invested heavily, so we're coming up to 5 years. Believe it or not, we ran out of space and we built an extension. And so that's added 3 additional rehearsal and meeting rooms. All of our lighting now across the site, including domestic lighting and on stage, is LED. We can live stream in and out of the building, both from stage and from any rehearsal space at broadcast standard, and that's in partnership with the council's broadband in the city centre. We've just gone live with a new digital assisted listening system. This is for our hard of hearing audience users, both in the theatres and any other space, in the bar, rehearsal space, dance studio, and that's Bluetooth enabled. And that's where we are the first venue in the East to have this technology, and that was in partnership with the National Theatre. And that we are still a very good building. Our BREEAM sustainability rating that puts us in the top 25% of public buildings. And the energy used on site, we use 50% total, well, all of our energy is renewable and 50% is solar generated from our roof. Next slide, please. The additional activities, as you well know, we produced the Christmas Lights Parade with 1,000 local school children. This year in the pouring rain, but the kids still did it, and that's working with all the schools in central Colchester. And then the work we'll do with Creative Colchester, Visit Essex, the Bid, etc. And the work we do with our Essex Music Service. Next slide, please. For those of you who missed it, Manning Tree Witches was our most successful Mercury production ever. Sold out every performance, and as you can see, we had all of the national press here, Times, Telegraph, Guardian, Daily Mail, and I'm amazed that I'm happy to report 8,500 people saw the show, and we're in discussions at the moment to potentially bring that back and for that to transfer and go on a UK tour. Ava, the writer of the stage adaptation, wrote this play in lockdown, in part of our writers group. She's got an Olivier nominee, and she won Best Newcoming Writer of the London Evening Standard Theatre Awards on Sunday. And AK, who wrote the novel, actually lives in Wivenhoe. So an absolute piece of Essex new work on our main stage. Next slide, please. I've mentioned Mercury Creatives there. We have a new partnership with the National Theatre to develop new writing, and another one of our writers, Martha Loader, has just won the Peter Schaefer Commission, which is an annual commission for a writer. We won Best New Play of the Year at the UK Theatre Awards for Flumps, which was an Essex-based play. We are shortlisted for an award for the Clean and Green Award for the whole of East Anglia, and the award ceremony is this Thursday night. And as I've mentioned there, those other awards that Ava and Ash R. Dame has received. Next slide, please. We've also hosted the first associate artist with Grey Eye Theatre Company, which is the National Theatre Company of Disabled People, looking at working with local disabled artists to Colchester and the region. And hot off the press, we're just about to announce a new annual Playwrights Award of £20,000, the Essex Playwrights Award, which will be to commission a writer and for them to have their work produced professionally in our studio. And we've just about to announce a new associate company called Fuse, who will integrate BSL and English, and that's a partnership with Royal Association of the Deaf, whose headquarters is in Colchester. And finally, a partnership with the Globe with a Sustainability Writers Award, which is a national playwrights competition for writers talking and using the subject of sustainability. Next slide, please. Wind in the Willows, I've mentioned from last weekend, the 2nd of April, Toto the Ninja Cat, which is the world premiere of Emma O'Leary's novels for kids. That's being co-produced with Little Angel and Mast in Southampton. So that's happening. We'll be on the One show this week, and then it opens in our studio, then plays in London, and goes on a UK tour for a year. Thespians is in May by the Mischief Gang. For those of you who know The Play That Goes Wrong, we have their next musical comedy as a world premiere. And Caroline, which is based on our new 60s musical, which is our co-production with the Wolsey and Bury St Edmunds. That opens in Ipswich in a couple of weeks. That's on an East Anglian tour, then comes to us. Then we get the Choir of Man coming from the West End. In the autumn, new production, a first regional premiere of the Nationals version of Jane Eyre. That will go on a UK tour. Jack and the Beanstalk Panto, and then we receive the Mousetrap UK tour early in 2027. Next slide, please. Very quickly, 5.4 million for the budget for the Mercury this year. We employ 146 staff, and as you can see there, we generate 82% of our income per year at 4.4 million, and we cost each resident of Colchester 87 pence. Next slide, please. And as everybody else has mentioned, we led in commissioning the economic impact study to update it because it was out of date from 2016. For every £1 invested in the Mercury, with £4 comes into Colchester. We spend 2.4 million in the economy, and annually our audience and visitors spend 5.78 million in the local economy, and that's evidenced by surveys. Again, that's not us making those stats up. And the GVA of the Mercury is 4 million. Next slide, please. This just gives you a kind of roundup of the, you were just going ahead of me there, but income. Our income will be this year for 5.4 million. Next year we increase by another million, and that will go to 6.4 million because of the amount of commercial work that we've got. And part of what Sally mentioned earlier, what we've been is very successful in terms of fundraising. So the Fidelity Foundation have also supported us. We have a project in schools working, funded by the Paul Hamlin Foundation. And where you'll see on expenditure there, like you, our two biggest costs are the work on stage and our operational and overhead costs. However, we're mitigating that by, as you can see, increased trading and increased fundraising. Just to say thank you and happy to take questions.
Thank you, Mr. Mannix. Members?
It's not really a question. I've got a couple of generic points I'd quite like to make based on the three excellent presentations, but it's not a question.
Proceed.
Okay, I mean, we've heard three excellent presentations, and we've obviously got three really good organisations. They give great pleasure to many people, including me, I might say. But we're here for scrutiny, and someone's got to ask the difficult questions. It's almost like heresy to raise questions about arts funding in Colchester. It's so deeply embedded in the culture of everywhere. So, but I might reflect, it wasn't always like that. I can remember when we were discussing the visual arts facility, the attitudes were very different, the questions were very pertinent. I'm hoping we've learnt the lessons and the kind of claims set out in the economic impact study that was in that brilliant business case for the map. You know, we're hoping we've improved. It sounds like we have, but I think the questions are still there, and I'd just like to flag them up and hope that maybe not today, but at some point someone does answer them. Some of it's been covered, but perhaps not all of it. I'll try and keep it as simple and as quick as I can. The first is, why us? This is the question that others may well ask. Why do we, in this particular organisation, have to provide funding for these organisations? There are many other sources of funding. There are many other potential routes for income. This organisation has got an awful lot of claims of people who would like funding, and they probably couldn't get it from anywhere else. So there's a slightly different set of criteria maybe in the evaluation that ought to go on when we're looking at in particular. You know, we've heard it buys us certain other things. It gives us a kind of inside track. It gives us a seat on the board. You know, we can call it a partnership and all that kind of thing. But and you know, if you were looking at a new play park for Lexton or something like that, they wouldn't be able to put that kind of argument forward. So there is this argument about, well, why does it have to be us? And the second issue, and this goes very much to some of the debate around the VAF, is about the benefits. And I'm interested that at least two tried to address this, because the background evidence is very clear that whilst you can make a very strong business case for investing in the arts, you've got an income gradient. However you look at it, I mean, I can quote the three big studies if you like to be really nerdish, but you know, there was a very good public health study done a couple of years ago which showed that gradient pretty clearly. Even the Arts Council accepts that looking generally, the excess, I can't even pronounce it, the people that use it there's a gradient and it runs very clearly across income. I think you've sort of shown about that. And I think that's something we ought to be aware of as well. I love the bar chart, but I bet you I could get it on a gradient. It still runs, it would still run up that way or another. And I think that's why when arts bodies put forward their bids and things like that, they would put in the outreach. You know, they go outside their core business. Well, that kind of proves the point, really, that the main dynamic fuels inequality, but they try and rectify it with their outreach activities. And I think that's a very good point that we should draw up as well. So I think, it's always the same issue. Why do we have to fund it? And can we find ways to counter the natural impact, which will be towards inequality, and level it off as much as we can? And is the portfolio holder keeping an eye on that kind of stuff, because he certainly ought to be, and I hope those questions aren't too difficult, and I hope I don't get burnt at the stake.
Go on, Mr. Mannix.
No, I think very happy to take the challenging questions. I think what support from the City Council would enable and levers in support from the Arts Council and the County Council. If you weren't in the game, they would not fund. So in our case, that would be at least 900,000, which wouldn't come off. And similarly, other funders will not invest if the local authority. So if your local authority doesn't care about you, why should a trust and foundation? Why should a high donor? And similarly, most of the other funding that is in existence at the moment is project funding. We will go from project to project to project. You therefore lose momentum, you lose staff, you lose relationships, and it actually ends up costing you more money to produce or present any work. There are only so many seats in the Mercury. Would that I could have built an extension to see Maintree Richards that sold out. And if I told you that I had to shift people around day by day to get people in, and actually, even then, the costs don't meet themselves. Actually, most of the people coming to see that were local people, and part of our role is for people to see their own community, their own history on stage, and their own fears, ambitions, and the contemporary nature of those stories on stage as well, much the same as the Arts Centre next door. So I would say it's about the consistency of approach, and actually we then, on your behalf, can lever in funding which the council is not able to get, and other organisations find it hard because of their capacity.
Councillor Smith.
Thank you. Whilst on the subject of hard questions, first of all, I suppose I should echo what's been said. I think the presentations we've had have been very good and very informative and giving us a strong business case for what you're doing. The finances of both Mercury and the Arts Centre have consistently been strong. You've suffered challenges with COVID and what have you. The same cannot be said for First Sight in its various guises. And many arts organisations struggle with the finances. Why do you think that you two are relatively successful in having a good grip on the finances when others in your sector don't have?
Well, I'd like to come on in first and answer on behalf of the Mercury. This guy is like a legend in terms of fundraising. Before I've even had breakfast in the morning, he's done 2 applications. You know, it is incredible. I have worked in the business, you know, since I've been about 25, and bar none, Steve Mannix is the best at fundraising. So in terms of the Mercury, I've answered that one for you. In terms of the Arts Centre, yes, we put the art at the centre of it, in the you know, the middle and the centre and the side and everything out. That is the last thing. But we quite enjoy the commerciality of it. I quite enjoy the job of selling tickets. I came up through marketing. I did marketing in little art centres before. So getting gigs on, choosing the right acts, getting them at the right time, and making a few quid is all part of the business for me as well. And I love a spreadsheet, but probably not as much as you. I know what you're like, what it's like, but you do have to keep on. And when I was first at the Arts Centre, you know, first chief executive, it was like, you know, every week, right, check that, 91 before computers, and it was like, you know, but after a while, it's a bit like cooking, you know, you can feel the kind of like the business, and it has upturned in the last 6 months, I would say. It's been a ticket sales have come up, the business has been come up as well. Coming back to Richard, I was just like, you know, if I had a quid, you know, perhaps I could monetarise this. There's so many towns, little, you know, kind of like amateur groups, community groups, amateur dramatics groups, bands. They come and they say, we want an art centre like yours. You know, why can't we have an art centre? And this is like Southend, this is
Sudbury.
Feedback. Who's on the tech? I don't really care. A bit of feedback, a bit like the Velvet Underground is. And it's about that continued investment. Colchester City Council has been, since I've been here in 91, there's been different organisations, different people I've talked to, different officers, but they've always been supportive. And I think, we can get a little bit kind of like lost in the politics of it all between left and right and middle and all that kind of stuff. I don't think that's the barometer I look at. I look at forward and backwards. Colchester City Council's always had its foot on the pedal to go forwards, and that's been an important part of the success story, I think.
Just to very quickly respond, I think it's about early adoption or diversification of audiences and not to be over-reliant on one source of income. So if you see, and also it's incumbent upon all of our organisations to serve all of the residents of Colchester. So, young people on our stage this weekend, Manningtree Witches, the whole of Manningtree decanted to Colchester, and we have anything from a tribute band to straight drama, music, and I think that's the core. The new building has enabled us to diversify that income and be early adopters of having that commercial and astute knowledge. It's not just me, it's my team.
Okay, members, I think we're done. Thank you. Councillor Scordis, would you like to surmise where we are?
Yeah, and just to pick up a few points, I mean, as I say, we talked about value here, and I think the real value has been shown by the amount of money that they do bring in. And as Anthony pointed out, it's less than a penny that Colchester residents are paying, and for the Mercury that gets the most amount, it was 87p, I believe, wasn't it, per resident, for what you get. And I mean, there are valid questions that Councillor Bourne's raised about the demographics that we do attract. And funny enough, I had this conversation with Frank about museums. Museums have a similar problem. They do attract people who are much more higher educated generally, and parents are usually just dragging their kid in there. Do they come back? Not always. But having gone to the Arts Centre many times, the last gig I went to was the Manchester Calling. I think my colleague and I were probably the most middle class there. It was a very good atmosphere, very good age range as well. So you had bands that clearly kids weren't even born, the Stone Roses, made me feel very old, who were there. But they were from all different backgrounds, and it was, I would say it was much more working class, lower middle class audience at that, and it was great. And the beer festival is, a massive spectrum of everyone. And the Mercury's the same. And recently I've used some of my locality budgets, so children in my ward can go and see Toto. And they've clearly been to the Mercury before, but they don't go as often as they usually would. That may be that some of the productions aren't to their taste, but that may be also financial and they make it when they can. But Steve pointed out that they've frozen some tickets at Panto, obviously always record selling, and that's probably when they definitely have been from my ward, from the lower scale of deprivation. But I think all these organisations, where we stand out as Colchester and why we support them, is we have so much more to offer than Colchester. If you go to Ipswich now, take away that football club, there is nothing there, being frank. There are empty units everywhere. They have got an M&S in town, they have got that we don't have, but that is it. And Chelmsford, yeah, it's got an okay high street. I don't think it's as amazing as people make out, because I go there for county council meetings. Same problems that we have. It does have an indoor market that people get excited about, but that's around it. They don't have the same things that will bring people to Colchester. If only we had a better football team, maybe that would bring in more people. Up the scale, I mean, where they are now is not great. Better when we had Layer Road as well, because that brought people into town. But we bring people in, as we say, as Ant's chart showed, half and half, and a lot of people go to the Arts Centre. Half of those people are from outside Colchester. And my friends who came to the beer festival, they come from Harwich, and they saw a lot of people get on the train from Manningtree and Mistley who were coming to the same event as well. So we do bring those people in. They're spending their money in our restaurants, our shops and our pubs, and helping our nightlife. So it's really important we keep this going. As I say, we have so much more to offer. And I think when we do get this super council, if it does happen, maybe we go all the way to Saffron Walden, who knows? Colchester will clearly be the centre. It will be the place where people want to go. It will be a place where there is good stuff happening for all age groups. So young people, as we had Esme here earlier, who's going to be a bright addition, but also these guys help us retain that talent. What towns and cities have really struggled is retaining this talent, because the big jobs are in London, or if you're far further north, Manchester, Liverpool. But actually, we're saying to young people, when you have gone to university, there is a life for you here in Colchester, there is a job, there is a career. So really important to say we support organisations, no matter what they do. They make us the big city in Essex, as far as I'm concerned, the place that people want to come to. And the fact that Blur is still happy to play Arts Centre after all this time, and they're not on the way down, they're just, not playing together as much, shows you how much we have to offer and why we should all be proud to be Colcestrians.
A very nice conclusion, Councillor Scordis. If I may speak on behalf of members here, we note the great work that you guys and Ms Shaw are doing with acclamation. It's quite evident from every one we've heard tonight and in our own experiences firsthand that we need a vibrant city centre, and you are definitely part of that. And for what I can tell, it looks like we're giving you a very modest financial contribution to enable significant employment, cultural activity, and long may you continue and prevail as far as I can see. That letter waffle, I think I'm getting nods to. So there is no cause for concern, and we support your work, and we look forward to seeing you continue to do great things. Mindful that you are enduring uneasy cost rises, and on that note, we all need to dig deep and just find the opportunity to get out there and get experiencing live music and entertainment in that ritual sense. Because if you want to see Coldplay at the O2, you got to start off at the Arts Centre. Yes, Mr. Manx.
Can I just do a very quick hot off the press? With the Mercury, we've been very involved in lobbying Westminster and the House of Lords around the devolution bill that was being debated this afternoon. I've currently appeared in Hansard twice, but the good thing is that the new mayor for Greater Essex will have an 8th competence added, and that will be culture. And that another amendment went down to increase the mayor's commissioners from 7 to 10, hopefully to include a culture commissioner. And going back to what I mentioned before, given the importance of culture, heritage and the visitor economy for Essex and for us as Colchester, that is absolutely vital. So I'm really pleased that we were able to all work together to get that through this afternoon.
Well done, Mr. Manx. Okay, thanks. Thank you very much. We're going to have a break for comfort. Can I see everyone back here, please? 8:05. That's 12-minute break, 8:05. We've got 2 portfolio holders to scrutinise, and we've got our friends from the Town Fund and other guests. There's a lot to get through. Thank you very much. Okay, folks, 8:05, we are back on for part 2 of Scrutiny. Back on for Scrutiny. We're going to rejig things. Folks, could I get your attention, everyone? Thank you. Okay, we're going to have the review of the town deal first. So if folks associated with the town deal would like to come up. Mr. Chilvers, you've been waiting very patiently to have your say, I believe, on this item. So it's incumbent on me to invite you up first, have your say. Indeed, if you... And just for the... I have many moving things to manage, but I saw you waiting patiently. You have the floor.
Thank you, Chairman. Look, Town Board, we are Colchester. It's a major subject, and it's impacting across the whole of Colchester. It'll affect everybody, and in the main, for the good. So I don't think I'm here to carp, but some questions. Like you, I want the best outcomes. In my former life, I worked with contractors on development projects, large and small. And in a voluntary public service role, I learned to look for what isn't being said and to cut to the chase. The digital forum is impressive, and it will be an asset to the city. St Nicholas Square, big improvement, but sterile, in my opinion. I made inquiries in the summer about seating and flowers. Apparently it's to keep the area clear for events. Now the prospectus talked about sculptured seating. A learning point there, use terms that the public understand. Because the sculpture turned out to be a brick wall too high for comfort unless you have long legs or wearing old trousers. Height range from 56 to 75 centimetres, standard bench is 43. No good for pensioners and mums with pushchairs who use the centre Monday to Friday in numbers. In short, it's inconsiderate. You haven't put everyday users first. You can have space and seating. Simply remove some bricks, create some 3 flat surfaces at normal bench height. I've seen it at a local primary school. It's not exactly hard to do. Now, regarding the bins there. Now, there's brief reference in the February minutes about perception. Well, yes, people want to know, are they going to fund and install screens or not? Or leave it as it is? Before the board says, well, it was all consulted on, yeah, the public missed it, so did the 14-member board at the outset and when signing off. When it comes to the East Hill cycle lanes, St Bottles Round and St Bottles Circus, do they really all need to be done at the same time? Now, there's reference to it being proactively managed. Have they seen the number of cars hanging around the entrance to Priory Street car park entrance? Key roads will be narrowed, temporary traffic lights, there'll be major disruption to traffic flow from east and south. More cars along Osborne Street will worsen the bus station chaos. Oversight could well go to pot when LGR upheaval arrives. They can't guarantee continuity of oversight. It rather smacks of complacency. City footfall and commerce will be hit, and the city councillors will be the ones who get the blame. It won't be town board who feel the flack at the quarterly meetings on team. Anybody will be accountable. Why is the town board championing the East Hill project when hardly anyone in Colchester wants it? So far, councillors have kept pretty quiet. Hopefully this committee will probe, ask some hard questions in the little time that you have. Well, you've got a bit more time now, by the sound of it. Now, I've only got 3 minutes, so I've only covered that bit. I'll now listen to response, but I'd like the follow-up minute as well, please.
Mr. Chilvers, we are really pushed for time this evening, as you'll know. I've got other items on the agenda. What I'm suggesting we do is move to the presentation and see if some of your questions can be answered within. And then if you look at me and I catch your eye, we can do a 1 minute towards the end. If I may say, it might well be, I'm not putting the pressure on the leader, but it might well be that the leader might wish to interject along with our friends from the town board discuss the politics of St Bot's and East Hill, because it's quite a delicate one. It might be that he has a view on that and he's privy to conversations that might be useful to give us an insight. As to your broad point about St Nicholas Square, I understand that the bins issue is being addressed, and it will be addressed by the operational issues because of the hotel having those bins, and we've all seen it with our own eyes. I understand it is going to be addressed, but that's all I can give you right now. Let's hope that the rest of the thrust of what you've
Well,
asked.
I'm asking questions that the public are asking too, aren't they?
Yeah. So with that, thank you very much for your patience and your presentation. You're welcome here as always. We're going to now invite up members, and while you're getting your seats, the only thing that I'm going to ask you, because we are really pushed for time this evening, within the presentation or whatever subsequent, I'd really probably benefit from a little insight into the interrelationship between the town's fund money, the levelling up money, and the Pride in Place money. The interrelationship, I think I'm a little blurry on some of this, and I understood the constitution that was set up and the arrangements around the governance of the original town's fund up to 25 million pot of money. I get that, but then there's been subsequently levelling up, which obviously the county council has been involved with because of some of the things it's going to be funding, and also we're now hearing, in fact I heard from a quote in the newspaper from our MP talking about the Pride and Place funding for Greenston, and I have no idea what opportunities there were for other communities in Colchester to bid for that money, quite frankly. So I'd like to have an insight into that if we can. But in the interest of time, over to you. Matthew, thank you.
Thank you, Chair. We've been reading the room and deciding that you might appreciate less in terms of the presentation rather than more. And so we circulated it in advance, and hopefully you've had a chance to see it. We've put printed copies in the audience area so people, guests can have a read of it. So what I'm going to do is talk to a couple of slides to remind you of the purpose of the town deal, and also canter through some of the achievements and challenges of the year. And then we'll be open to any questions you want to ask us. To answer Mr. Chilver's points about St Nicholas Square, there is absolutely work afoot. The bins in question are on land owned by the hotel, the St Nicholas Hotel. So we have influence rather than control. But I think they want to resolve it as well. And my understanding is they've got a live project with the Colchester Institute to have screens designed and erected. So that should be resolved in good time. In terms of events at St Nicholas Square, I mean, we absolutely wanted the square to be animated, to use the jargon. We've seen the big wheel there over Christmas, which was very popular. We've seen a carousel there over half term. I think this weekend there might be a cycle event there. So it's absolutely coming to life. What we didn't seek to do, and I hope we haven't done, is create a sterile space. But with all of those spaces, it tends to be the people using them that add the colour and richness. So, just to remind ourselves why we're doing the town deal at all, and the interrelation with the levelling up is absolutely that we bid separately for town deal money and levelling up money. The government now considers them one and the same. So the distinction has all but vanished. Can you move to the next slide, please? I would say by far the biggest reason we're doing them is to boost the local economy. You know, at the heart of it is for economic growth. The means to that end are work to maintain and increase the vibrancy of the city centre, because if we can drive up footfall and custom, it supports and creates jobs. With Greenston in mind in particular, it's about providing access to improved services in our area of highest deprivation. It's about bringing heritage buildings back into use. Now, from my purely economic growth lens, that's all about driving footfall. So it's about the experience of the city centre, Jumbo as a visitor attraction, Holy Trinity as a community asset. But if you have a soul as well as an economic lens, they're much loved buildings that are going to be rejuvenated. So we also want to support the economy of the city by boosting jobs and in particular, the digital forum contributes to that aim. And we've got guests with us today who represent two of the individual projects in the scheme. From the North Essex Heritage Trust, we have Simon Hall, who are the people responsible for repairing and renovating and adapting Jumbo. So we hope you may have some questions about that project. It's very exciting, very, to use an overused word, iconic, and will be known by everyone in the city, I would think. And on my immediate right, we have Simon Mead, who runs Colby, the Business Enterprise Agency, who are the managing operator for the Digital Forum. A fantastic new building on Queen Street. Building work finished, currently recruiting tenants, but already with meetings happening there and hot desk workers there. Next slide, please. So, 2025. I remember sat here last year and we talked about 2025-26 as the year of delivery. So we were promising you that we were about to transition from lots of planning and consultations and engagement to actually building stuff and finishing building stuff. And I'm pleased to say we have. So if you look at the town deal projects in and of themselves, about 70% of them are completed. We've built and completed the digital forum. And as I say, Simon Mead is here to answer your questions about the operations of that building. We've long since completed the Digital Skills Hub, the IT skills facility at the Wilson Mary Centre. This year we completed the renovations at the Townhouse Youth Centre. A really busy, much in demand building, but it was looking its age. And £1 million being spent there to bring it up to modern standards. Finished St Nicholas Square, as I say. The actual town deal bit of the Holy Trinity project, which were the repairs to the tower and the roof, are complete. The town deal was also supposed to get us to the point of submitting a heritage lottery bid for the adaptation of the building, and that was submitted about a month or so ago now. And we are currently waiting for an outcome on that. I'm expecting to have heard something within a couple of months on that one. And we have built some 5G infrastructure, which is not universal by any stretch of the imagination in city centres. We've appointed a contractor for the Greenstead Multi-Use Hub. I think, strictly speaking, the contractor for the walking and cycling route on East Hill is being appointed rather than being appointed, but there's a contractor that's been identified and it's going through Essex's governance process at the moment. Jumbo has appointed its main contractor, a scheme which many people have tried to do over the years and many people thought was undoable, but we've moved to the point where through the work of the trust, the lottery have made an £8 million award, and we have a contractor on board. We've appointed a contractor for the Trinity Square, which is sat waiting for the repairs at the church to happen for quite some time. And you can see the other projects that are delivering outcomes at the bottom of the slide. Next slide, please. Last slide, please. But you won't be surprised to know that there have been challenges. Cost escalation is still very relevant. As anyone who's reading the news about High Speed 2 in the last couple of days, these schemes are bedeviled by growing costs. Since we submitted the request for funding to government, we had the war in Ukraine. Now we've got whatever impact the war in Iran has. But certain build materials have been particularly hard hit, and sometimes not things that you would expect. So glass, apparently, we've seen real inflation on that at the moment, and there's a lot of that required for Trinity Church. But it's something we're actively managing. So where there's been cost escalation, we've sought to either attract further external funds, value engineer, or change the scope of the project, or all three. And we've been imaginative in moving money between projects where one project can do with less, but another one's demands are higher. The projects are complex. I mean, you just take Jumbo, for example, trying to protect a really much loved, much known landmark building, but make it accessible as a visitor attraction. And actually, I know the Jumbo Trust have been running tours of the building, and they've been incredibly popular. So that's pent up curiosity that people have about that. And we have challenging timescales. It's become slightly less pressured of late because the government has set a new deadline date for the combined funding of 2028. But actually, we know that we're ambitious to crack on anyway, and actually costs only go up if you wait. So that change in timescale has brought us a little bit of flexibility where delaying means better sequencing, but actually we're really keen to stick to plan as much as possible. And the last bullet point there is just the challenge of attracting. There's a couple of projects in the town deal which were always about early repairs and enabling larger funding bids. So Jumbo is a case in point. Our money was about enabling the repairs to the building, but also enabling the trust to go to the lottery and ask for the money, which they did and they got. The same is true for Holy Trinity Church. So we've repaired the building. It's in about the best state it's been for probably in living memory, I would think, at the moment. And we've submitted the bid, but it's a £2.8 million bid for that building. So there'll be competition. And I think I'll stop talking there and we'll take any questions you have.
Great stuff. Okay, Councillor Rowe, you're quick off the mark. Go for it.
Thank you, Chair. Don't deny that fantastic work looks like we're doing across the board here. Some absolutely fantastic projects. From a scrutiny perspective, I think it's important that we, as a panel, should know sort of what the, I don't know, if we could sort of pull this together, like what was the original scope that we agreed? How are we tracking against that original scope? What changes have been made? Are we on track? Are we delayed? Are we at risk? Are we over budget? Where do we as a council have financial exposure to anything that's changed? And measurable outcomes. What measurable outcomes do we... And I understand that a lot of these are already in some of the business cases and things like that, but it would be nice to see, I think, sort of in something that we could scrutinise as to where are we tracking, how are we doing, what was the original ask, what are we going to deliver, and are we still looking to deliver the benefits that we originally saw from that in the first place? Thank you.
Thank you. Some of the original intention and progress is in the report, so I won't go over what's already in the report. Right, those are the kind of questions, aren't they? And I think, I mean, there's a number of projects that are already completed, and so the financial exposure on those is complete. Some of the projects have been led by the county council as well, so the financial exposure is not ours; it sits with the county council. So the cycling and walking route, for example, I can give you an example on that one. It's the entire route runs from here to the university. It's been done in sections, and the priority has gone to the East Hill section because the funding did not allow us to do the whole route. So some of the sections have already been completed, but the Moor section is the one that still needs to be completed. So we have had to shift around depending upon what funding is available, and the County Council have also put some additional funding in to complete the East Hill section. So, you know, we have creatively on some of those, some of the projects, worked around what we have so that we don't put pressure on the council's budget. You'll know about Greenstead because we've been here for scrutiny on Greenstead in its own right. And we knew that the cost envelope for that had risen, and so the County Council, the council have underwritten the gap on the funding. We're now, you know, in that contract position, so that's fixed as far as the funding goes for the moment, subject to, you know, the usual process of construction. But you know, we have had to put top-up funding into that project because the original conception, which would have been nearly 7 years ago now, of costs, is nothing like the actual costs that we have now. So there have been some projects that have moved quite significantly, but some have, for example, the townhouse funding, the youth facilities funding was fixed. It was what it was, and it was fixed across the 3 centres. It also did Stanway and Highwoods, which is not mentioned on here. They're both completed as well. So, and again, the contribution to the Essex County Hospital for the public realm there is fixed. The money for the repairs was fixed. So lots of it was fixed. If you remember, we also cancelled, Town Deal Board cancelled a couple of projects. It reduced the investment in the public realm around the Mercury, did the original phase, gave some money into Jumbo to incorporate in the public realm work there, but has minimised really the public realm works around there to really cut our cloth. And we also have not taken forward the curbless streets. Because, I mean, it was a mixed project in terms of so that one's gone. So there have been decisions made, and indeed there was some money to do really to activate the 5G network in a kind of virtual reality sense, and we're not spending that money either. That's gone into Heart of Queenston. So there's been some cutting of cloth within the programme as well. But broadly speaking, the majority of the projects stay in there and will still be delivered.
I really appreciate that, and I think that's a fantastic summary of the whole thing. I suppose I wasn't really asking, could you give me the full summary? I'm sure across the board you know it, I think, and as you say, I'm sure quite a lot of that detail is already inside the pack. It's the matter of, I suppose, pulling it out into one area where it is easy for us as a scrutiny panel to simply see, this is what we originally did, this is the current status of it, this is the benefits, this is the exposure, has it been cut, for example, or has it been transferred somewhere else? I think if we could just get that, I think that would be fantastic, because then we'd be able to see exactly what it is. Thank you very much.
Agreed. Okay, I can see a number of questioners, including myself. Councillor Osborne, you were next on my list.
Hello. Given the recent cost escalation and the ongoing value engineering and scope review for the Jumbo renovation, can the project team outline how these changes will affect the final design, visitor experience and operational model? Additionally, what is the long-term vision for Jumbo once reopened in 28, and how will the council ensure the landmark becomes a sustainable, well-used community and heritage asset for our city? Thank you.
If I may, that is absolutely the question. What we wanted to create is something which is going to be a great attraction. It's going to encourage people to come to Colchester. It's going to be an interesting thing to see, and it's a place that people will want to go back to. Now, you can only achieve that if you can design a building which is then going to be maintained, so it generates income to maintain it for the future. It has things in it which are of interest, which cost money. And in that, just summarising briefly, the cost overruns that were identified were about £4.5 million, right across the piece. And they were, it would be fair to say, unexpected. We've employed the best architects, the best cost consultants, but they were unexpected because of the complexity of the building and the interrelationship between the different trades. We've had a very serious value engineering exercise, and both in terms of value and scope. Now, the Trust wants to create something, as I say, which is going to be something we're all proud of and that everybody will want to use. But you can't necessarily do that if you can't get the prices down to where you need to get them. We've set ourselves scenario 3, we call it. That still requires £2.6 million of extra money, which is not a small number. We've had this debate with the lottery fund already, the initial discussions with the lottery fund. The lottery, you may recall, we applied for £7 million and they gave us 8. Garfield Weston, we applied for 150 and they gave us 200,000. People like this building. They want to see it happen. And I can't say categorically where the money is going to come from, but I'm very hopeful that we will be encouraged to apply again to the lottery fund to increase the amount that they've granted. And in that context, we will have dropped things out. We won't have a ground floor as we, the Trust, would like to see it, but that is something we could phase in later, as and when time permits and funding permits. The quality of various windows are not quite what Purcell's would have liked us to have had, but they are cost effective. There are things of that nature which are predictable, but at the end of the day, it's going to be something that we should be proud of. But the Trust cannot sign up to something unless they're confident they can pay for it. And so sources of funding is terribly important as a subject. And it's not just the lottery. I'm also, I'm afraid, looking at Colchester and Essex to contribute as well. Colchester has been fantastic. They've given us the opportunity to make the bids we have. Could I squeeze a little bit more out of it? I will keep on asking.
Thank you, Simon.
Thank you. Whatever the transformation will be, Jumbo will be and is cherished.
Thank you, guys. Okay, Councillor Osborne, you seemed very happy with that response. I was very happy with that response. I'm going to just dive in quickly to the leader, because I heard Mr. Chilvers earlier on, and I fear it won't be tackled if I don't do it. So, look, leader, sorry to pounce on you, but I know you can handle it. Look, change is difficult, and the transition to any change is difficult. And, you know, if I think back about some of the projects that have been funded quite rapidly in the centre of Colchester, for example, the widening of the walkway over Balkan Hill, the widening of the bridge in Lower Castle Park, these were all externally funded things, and I think we were all very grateful that they were done. They are clearly an improvement on our lives. However, I cannot honestly put my hand on my heart and tell the world now that the segregated cycle lane on East Hill and St Botolph's will be an improvement in our lives. I can't do it. I'm not taking a particular strong line either way. I'm just not convinced. And what I'm definitely not convinced about is the concurrent projects happening and the impact that could have on Colchester and existing getting around the place. And on top of all of that, and the question I've got to you really is around the communications, because you have got to sell this. And unfortunately, when we are seeing the worst road surface conditions in living memory, which is paid for by public money, when another pot of public money is being used for a scheme that people don't necessarily believe in, how are you going to bridge that gap, if you like, as an authority working with our partners at Essex to sell the story? Because it may well be that it's the right thing to do. I just don't know it is. So what would you say to that, sir?
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Mr. Chilvers. We always have a good conversation because you do bring, as you said, to the point, observations about the experience or the prospect of the experience that lies ahead for the residents in the city. So look, you know, when you were running through your checklist, I didn't catch all of it, but I caught, for example, the observations around St Nicholas Square. And if you bear with me, I'd like to just walk through that. So I have been in touch with those responsible for those wretched bins, and I mean directly, like in the MD, about 5 times. Right? I'm beyond exasperated, I'll be frank about it, that we've done a fantastic job, spent a great deal of money, and we have collectively not managed to capture until very late in the day some of the things which are visible and therefore really matter. You know, they spoil the appreciation of the square to some. They are, I know, they are being gripped. And that includes small things like around that tree. The fact that it was just bare earth and weeds. Now, I'm being negative for a point only to say that I completely get that observant people will say, well, this is all great, but what about? And we're on those 2 examples of finishing well. But the wider picture is the one that's described by the team. What's flowing through the city is fantastic. It's fantastic to have happen. It's a once in a generation renewal and regeneration. And in the balance we have to strike in this committee and elsewhere, we've got to see it in that context. But it comes with inconvenience and difficulty. Now, the role I try to play here is in relationship and partnership, in realism and challenge, in the same way you try to do it here in the committee, and thank you for it. And I'll come back to the piece of comms. It's got to be about the communications. It's a truth that nobody likes the same things. We can accept intellectually things and then not want to see them applied. So everybody loves the idea of housing for their grandchildren, not next door. Most of us would accept that there is a demonstrable connection between exercise and well-being. We have too many cars on the road, we have traffic congestion. Make it easier to have the alternatives. The investment that's happening by stage across the city, including the much loved, is in my ward, Mile End, bus lanes, late, poorly managed, poorly communicated, are examples of how not to do it. But the end product is an example of what you want, and it's piecemeal. The city has not had a set of connections in any meaningful way for exercise, for cycling. That's the context for me of how I look at East Hill. It's what it enables. It's another very significant piece of connectivity which makes possible alternatives to taking a car. When it's done, if it's done as well as we hope it will be done, it'll become another new fact and part of our landscape, part of this wealth of change that's rolling through the city. So the way that I've tried to approach this, in the knowledge that there are time limits about when work has to be done, Highways did not intend to have these two schemes running so close to each other and in parallel with each other. My involvement and the team's involvement has been all about ensuring that when we run through this is as well managed as it's possible to be, and that we set a new bar for communication. I've not had quite the answer yet I want. So this is very personal to me. I want to see us say there should be a daily update on what's happening on those schemes. You should be able to go and find your resident interested, you go and find out what's happening. Not just monthly or after the event, not even just weekly, but if it's significant, daily. We should have the quality of modelling that enables Highways to say, if you're coming in, it's going to be fine. But on this day, you might have 10 or 20 minutes added to your journey. I don't know how realistic I am, but I'm setting those kinds of expectations. So round the circle, if I might, and I'll close on this, the quality of the city centre depends on us following through on things we blithely and rightly agreed some years ago about master planning, and then following it through. It's going to have a risk of disruption, have a reality of disruption. How well we communicate the challenge and the benefit that lies ahead of us, we're going to do our very best. And we've got people devoted to doing this, working with businesses. And for me, the last thing, to hear the Business Improvement District at their board have a briefing from their own staff around what was planned for the city centre, and to hear it as almost as good as Matt's just now was really encouraging. Some of the people who could be most affected really do get it and have a measure of belief in it, and if they can, so can we.
Thank you. That was reassuring to my question. Okay, a number of questioners. Councillor Smith first, please.
Thank you. I'd like to look a little bit on two subjects. The first one's the digital forum. You mentioned that you were looking for tenants and occupations on there. Can you give us some figures on how that's going and how that's comparing to other sites? And we're not hopefully going to get a situation where people are filling this one up but emptying others of your premises that you operate.
No problem at all. So just to put this in context, so the digital forum was finished. We got it just, I think, about the week before Christmas. We spent all of January building it, and we're in soft launch mode at the moment. So I think some people in this room came to our launch party, very successful. We had lots of people there, got a lot of PR for it. We had a couple of delays in the delivery of the building, like you do in all of these things. And we are in the process now of kind of revitalising those leads. So there's only 9 offices in there. To put that in context, Colby run 2 other buildings in conjunction with the council. We've got 62 businesses in those, and we've only got 3 spare offices. So there's quite a demand. What's important for me with the digital forum, and it's a point we've always made, is that it's a unique building. And it's unique in the fact that it has this fantastic connectivity. So there's a 10 gigabit pipe that comes into it, which is provided by Colchester Fibre, with incredible connectivity within the building. That encourages a certain type of business. So if I was just to say, let's just open the doors and let anybody come into it, I think I could probably get rid of those 9 offices in 6 months' time. I don't want that. This is a once in a kind of period opportunity to bring the types of businesses in that the digital forum was designed for. And that is high-end media companies, it's top-level architects, it's telecine companies, it's people working within the AI space. So companies that will be using that connectivity to move around high volumes of data efficiently and working with and working together to kind of create something that Colchester has never had. So we are building up the leads. We don't have a set our first tenancy yet, but what is also important is the ground floor of that building is drop-in workspace. So again, Colby have been trialling this in our 2 centres, and they're going quite well. The digital forum is the first time that Colchester has had that kind of WeWork type space available to people. And actually from day one, we now have, we've got space for 24 kind of drop-in desks there. We've regularly got half a dozen people in there, and it's building all of the time. So the early signs are really, really good, given we kind of soft launched about 4 or 5 weeks ago.
Can I push you a little bit? This time next year, how many of those 9 properties would you expect to have let?
I'm going to have half of those done. But I do want to stress that so the other thing that's different is that in our existing Colby buildings, we have rolling tenancies of 30 days. This is different. You know, we're talking 3 to 5 year leases here. So if we get it wrong, we've got those people in there for a long time. So I don't look at this as a short-term proposition. You know, this is one where I'll look back in 5 years and say, look what we've done. Isn't this brilliant?
Thank you. I must admit, I haven't appreciated the length of the leases there. The second item I'd like to move on to is the Art of Greenstead project, which has had some difficulty. But looking forward, phase 2, that's also got considerable financial challenges and funding requirements there. If phase 2 didn't happen, what would we be left with anything viable? What would be the consequences of not having a phase 2?
So the phase 2 was always envisaged to be actually an estate regeneration programme. So taking some existing housing largely and some council-owned space among that housing and regenerating it. So as they've done in lots of other cities, the challenge so lots of that housing was not up to kind of the standards, particularly around energy efficiency, build quality. It was lots of what was originally envisaged to be quite temporary housing, but has become permanent housing. Some of it is owned, so people have chosen to buy their properties in those areas as well. So at the moment, what would happen if there was no phase 2? Well, not very much. Those properties would continue to be managed by Colchester Borough Homes, and the owned ones would be continue to be managed. They are properties that require quite a high level of investment over time, as I say, because the energy efficiency standards on them aren't great, so they will need to be brought up at some point, and that will be in the HRA business plan that Colchester Borough Homes run. So it really depends whether there is whether the business case for regeneration stacks up. We've had very early conversations with consultants who we'd need to bring some support in to help us understand what the business cases might look like. and just very early conversations on that. And that's probably more to do with capacity, because we're focusing on delivering phase 1 within the town deal team, and largely phase 2 would be led by Colchester Borough Homes.
Thank you, Chairman. I think you mentioned Pride in Place. Could we bring that into the conversation?
I can give you a very brief update. Michelle is in the room, so she might well want to do a slightly more detailed update. Just to be clear, we didn't bid for Pride in Place funding. Pride in Place funding has been allocated, and it's been allocated on deprivation indices. So it's effectively looked at the first cut of most deprived areas. Some of the significant areas of deprivation in our neighbouring authorities, such as Tendring, have already received Pride in Place funding 2 years ago, I think. So this isn't the first tranche of it. I think it was called something else. So we were in the second phase because of the deprivation statistics. So they really have drilled down into particular areas and then allocated funding according to that. They've done a similar thing with the next phase. So there was no bidding. It was just allocated and very welcome. And at the moment, it's led by the MPs. And at the moment, they are in the process of recruiting to a Heart of Grimsby board. It has to have an independent board led by the community. And then once that's up and running, they have to put their plan together for how they intend to run the programme. And that, I think, has to be submitted by September. Yeah. So there's a lot of work to get it in place at the moment, and then they will submit their plan to government in September. And I think it's a drawdown of 2 million each year over the 10 years, and it's part revenue, part capital. Can't remember exactly the separation, but I think it's about a third revenue, 2/3 capital.
Thank you. It's pleasing that funding's coming in, but of course it's coming into 3 of our 4 most deprived areas. The 4th most deprived area is just outside that. It's St Anne's Estate. It's very sad to me that that area is also not included if it's really meant to tackle deprivation. But I understand that the Leader of the Council has been very supportive of it, but that we've been unable to date to convince the MP that the area needs to be expanded. Is that still the case?
I'm afraid I don't know the answer to that. I know that there has been an ability to slightly look at the boundaries, because, as I say, they do it on the map according to the data, and it excluded some of the key facilities in the area, which didn't make any sense at all, schools, etc. So we're looking at what that looks like with the MP, but I don't know about St Anne's. I can get you an answer on that unless David knows.
I would just say, and Councillor Smith is aware of this, that made representations, because the logic just described that community its needs and the means to meet its needs don't stop necessarily at the end of the street. So there is that relationship to map and understand, and we will continue to make appropriate representations to the MP. We'll make sure we talk to Pam Cox about this, and she had indicated a willingness to have that conversation, and I think that certainly is a good start.
I'm just going to invite Michelle up to say, and while she's getting to position, I'm just going to make the mildly partisan point, actually, which is that, yes, we welcome this external funding into Colchester, but do you know what? I'd like to see less taxation on jobs and perhaps a reduction in VAT, because that would have a material impact across all of Colchester. So if our MP is listening and watching, take that one back to Rachel Reeves, please. Michelle.
Thank you. Good evening. Just following up on Lindsay and Councillor King's comments there. So we have, as it's been stated, we didn't bid for this. It was an application process. It's completely based on the IMD data. There is a slight flexibility around that border, and we are working with Pam Cox and her team at the moment. Very, very limited flexibility around that. And the funding's come with very, very tight guidelines around the community-led board, the capital revenue split, and the parameters around that.
Okay, thank you. I think this has been a really good airing. Councillor Smith, we must move on shortly.
So yes, just as you mentioned, facilities, neighbouring, that area. I should point out that as a declaration of interest that I am a trustee of the St Anne's Community Centre, and the Green St Anne's Delivery Unit is actually based there.
Okay. I've got Councillor Bourne and Councillor Willits. I'll have Councillor Bourne if he does a concise question, if he can. Thank you, sir.
Yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to the business case for Greenstead Phase 2, so waiting for that to come along. It was actually a slightly broader point, Chair, but I'm struggling a bit. I think Councillor Rowe touched on it as well. There's an awful lot of detail here, and especially at 10 to 9, it's quite difficult to know what to look at and what not. I mean, I must admit, what I expected, but we got a programme, we got 12, 14 projects underneath. So each month, the Programme Management Office writes its report, sends it to the board. It's got the highlights for each project. It's got a RAG rating for everything. You instantly know what you're going to focus on and not. And it saves, we've got a massive breadth, but it's very difficult to distill that down into precisely what we should be digging into. So if the board has got that kind of governance structure, which of course it should have with its highlights and its dashboard, couldn't we just have those? And then that would give us a much better basis to know what we want to look at.
The Town Deal Board reports and agendas and updates are all in the public domain, so we can make sure those are available to scrutiny members.
Like the highlight report, the
yeah,
traffic lights, rate, everything.
We do a very clear to board every time with all of that information in it. Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Clark. So that will be distributed through me if needs be, or directly. And also substitute members, super subs as well, all included. Right, so Willis.
Chairman, I find this a particularly difficult area to scrutinise, partly for the reasons which Councillor Bourne has just made known. And even if the information is available, I can hardly ever log on to the council's IT system. So it doesn't really help me, but no one seems particularly interested in that at all. But there are, as a scrutiny panel, we need to have a view on what it is we're trying to do on this project. We looked at some of these issues of business cases in great detail when the project was being set up. We looked at it ad nauseam and assured ourselves that that it was the best that could be done under the circumstances. But since then, so we drift in. Occasionally we have a report coming to us about what's going on, as we have an annual report here. But it doesn't really tell me. I don't think it tells Councillor Bourne, who's a master of project management, about what's going on and whether we're asking the right questions. And in my mind, Chairman, there are 3 areas where I believe we need scrutiny. At least one we should be doing now, or 2 of them we should be thinking about how we're going to do it and what we're going to respond to. The first area is the internal project management, where it is being done, absolutely no doubt, because whenever we ask a detailed question, we get the answers back. You know, it's all there in the system, but we only see what we ask, and we don't get anything which allows us to really take a mature view how these projects are moving forward. I do take exception with what was said earlier on, that you know, the answer to this is to have better comms with a sort of a daily update on what's happening. That will just confuse the position even more for those of us who are overloaded.
Sorry, David, that was only with respect to the 2 traffic schemes at the same time.
Yes, okay, but it just confuses things. And the issue of HS2 was brought up earlier on in Matt's presentation, and that is a project which does do a daily, if not an hourly, presentation on what is going on. And there you have a project which is massively over budget. The trains are too long, they travel too fast. The project seemed ideal, but it just doesn't suit the requirements of the day. No one really wants to spend that amount of money to get to Manchester 5 minutes earlier than they would have done earlier on. And I suspect that there is that sort of thinking going on in these projects. So, first issue for scrutiny is the internal project management, where we need to soup up the information that we're getting, how it's delivered to the scrutiny panel. The next issue, which we should be looking at, starting to look at now, because it's getting to the point where I think it fits into the timetable, is have these projects met their objectives? And are they meeting their objectives from a city-wide perspective? Because it's all about town centre, which is just a very small part of the city. The areas I represent is Lexton area, where everyone's really interested in what's going on in the town centre, city centre. But the vast part of my ward goes out into the rural areas to Great Tay and so on. They don't see themselves as part of Colchester, let alone part of the city centre. So the city-wide perspective of what's going on needs to be used as a ruler to see whether these projects are meeting their requirement. You know, there's nothing about rural bus services so that people can get into the city centre and enjoy the many things which we've heard about this evening. You know, such issues as will I take my wife to the Shard for her birthday in 2 or 3 weeks' time, or will I take her somewhere in Colchester? That really is a silly question to ask because we know what the answer is. So we need to think, have these projects met the expectation of the council and the people we represent across the board, not just in Grinstead, not just in the town centre, but across the board? Because if they haven't, it's going to be like HS2. You know, some people are happy with the idea, if you live in Manchester and want 5 minutes taking off your journey, but the majority of people are not interested in the project. They're not interested in the cycle lanes. They're not interested in the excuses given why we spend our money in such a strange way on highways. They are interested in where are the rural bus services rather than the cycle lanes. So there needs to be a significant exercise to see whether the basket of projects we've had is of any use to the city at all. They may have been well delivered in an exemplary style, but are they any use? And the third area we need to look at is the style itself, the style with these projects were delivered. The council has been sidelined. We were told that councillors don't have the skills, the necessary skills and ability to manage these sort of projects. And this was a government decision, so it's not our decision, but we can still comment on it in terms of our view of it. So the project was given to a group of the city's great and the good, who, when you look at where they come from, they don't exactly represent the whole of the city. They represent sort of the inner area, which many of my representatives, many people I represent, cannot get into, and even if they can, they don't want to. They'll be with me dining in the Shard, not in Colchester. So we need to look at the style with which these projects are delivered and say, is there a better way? Would it have been better if it had been managed by councillors rather than the great and the good? Not our decision, but it's still a matter on which we should be discussing. So I think there are lots of issues from a scrutiny point of view where we need to think about the work programme on these combined projects and start scrutinising them to the benefit of the entire city rather than just the city centre.
So thank you. I think it's worth remembering, and it is a long time ago when we put together with colleagues the original programme, that it had parameters, you know, and it was very much about city centre. We did extend those parameters to include the heart of Grinstead because the reason we were able to bid for town deal funding was because we had high levels of deprivation. So there were some very significant parameters around what we were allowed to use the funding for and where we were allowed to use it. We had to put maps in to show the area that we were going to invest in, and that had to be approved as part of the process. So I take the point, you know, it's not necessarily going to benefit everybody, but that wasn't the intention of the programme originally. We have invested in the city centre in a range of things that will be beneficial to the wider population. So, you know, Jumbo is a great example of that. I don't think there's hardly anybody that would not understand the value that bringing that building back into use will bring to Colchester itself, and local residents are very keen to visit and cherish it. But places like the townhouse, you know, that's used by young people from all over the borough. You know, that's not a city centre area project, it's a facility that is used by people all over, as will be Digital Forum, Holy Trinity Church. So they are projects that are about the city centre in essence, but they are absolutely about wider residents being able to use them. On the objectives, we tried very clearly to give you in the presentation, and we didn't go through them this evening, but that really clear sense of what we are delivering against each. Some of them we are collecting that data now, because the Digital Skills Hub has been in operation for well over 2 years, and the data is really impressive in terms of the number of people that are gaining valuable digital skills to enable them to access employment. So, and that isn't geography specific, that is for the whole of the city area, and really significant benefits being realised there already. Some of the benefits, as Simon has talked about, are still to come, because these are projects that have only just been landed. But we've tried to give you, because you've asked us this in the past, so we really tried to focus in our presentation on pulling out the kind of outcomes and the objectives. And on the walking and cycling route, I would also add into that, you know, Essex Pedal Power's scheme in Greenstone has been one of the most successful of all the schemes it's delivered. 900 plus bikes been given away, which, you know, that's not just for physical activity, as the leader has outlined, which is incredibly important in health outcomes, but it's also for accessing education and work. And if we don't put the cycle routes in that enable people to cycle safely and access some of those facilities, then it is quite a barrier to people in certain parts of our city. And I absolutely appreciate, you know, the kind of rural, if I could get my hands on bus services, it was one of the reasons I was incredibly behind mayors, just the opportunity to get our hands on bus services to make them more accessible. But that's going to be a longer term plan, I'm sure.
Just to add a couple of things to that. Reassurance that there's absolutely the program project management governance that you would expect to see in place. Sponsors, owners, monthly reports, RAG rating, absolutely. I think all of those progress reports are available online. We publish them all for transparency. Not dependent on CCC IT, they're just on the internet. We took the judgment that with your strategic focus, you'd be more interested in the delivery of the overall projects rather than the minutiae of the project management, but all of that is shareable. In terms of the point about the external board, it was the last government, I think, who took a decision that that was a requirement of the funding. So it wasn't from our perspective at any rate to comment on the ability or otherwise of councillors to run it. It was a means to get the money.
It was what it was. Okay, Councillor Rowe, do you have a question?
A very quick one, Chair, if I may.
Very quick.
Thank you. Councillor King, you mentioned earlier around the connectivity with regards to cycle paths. I often get asked sort of, you know, where's the overriding plan? How are these sort of decisions taken? Who took them? Who decided on it? When was it agreed? Is there a map that we can look at, etc., along those lines? Could you just sort of advise me as to where that is, as I'm sure one exists somewhere, and from a resident's perspective, how do they see that so that they can just look at it and go, okay, I see the vision, I understand what they're trying to get at, and obviously I assume then from our perspective it becomes a bit more simple as to when money arises across the board, that we can then go, okay, this is the next phase in the plan, and I'm assuming that exists somewhere. So if you could just give me a quick point around that, and then just very quickly just on the top of it, you mentioned that giving away 900 bikes as a success. I'm not entirely sure that giving away bikes is a success in itself. I do think that if we could measure somehow if those bikes are being used, or we could measure the uptick, yeah, that's fine. If we can measure the uptick in people cycling across Colchester, if we can measure the fact that those bikes are being used, etc., right, then I think that's a better story for us to tell, rather than simply just saying 900 bikes, we've given them away, that's a success. I think we need to, that's the sort of, you know what I mean? I feel like that's the sort of detail, that's where we need to be with overlooking on these projects, okay? Thank you.
Let me just...
Leader, I must clarify, we've hit the 9 o'clock mark, so what I'm going to suggest is that, Leader, you do respond, and then for the benefit of members and staff, we do need to conclude the meeting, and I'm really sorry for all those that patiently waited. What I would suggest is, if they're in agreement, the portfolio holders that have been here tonight, that have been patiently waiting, if they want to share their presentations in the form that as they've got them to all members here, that would be really useful. And if they're open-minded to having some questions informally, fine, but rest assured, when we see you back in this place after May, we will seek to programme your appearance in this place as quickly as possible. That's what I'm going to have to suggest, because we can't continue beyond the time that we're on. Leader.
Just before Councillor King comes in, really important questions. If you go to slide 6, it tells you 700,000 minutes of activity, and the distance travelled by bike recipients is equivalent to cycling around the world 3 times.
Sorry, how did we measure that?
Okay, Leader, you're going to get the last word on this one, and I'm going to thank everyone for their work. Leader.
Thank you for the questions, and Councillor Rowe, there's no meeting we don't attend together in which there isn't one. So thank you. I'm glad you're keeping up that track. The central point about tracking is absolutely essential. So we will pull together not just what was already in the pack, but the wider analysis of mapping and what lies ahead in terms of cycle routes, what's been achieved and what we hope to achieve. It will be, the last point on this, very much dependent on the lump by lump way in which, unfortunately, funding comes forward. But we're committed to making this a more realisable prospect for those like us who want to get out on a bike, to make it safer to go and do so. And we'll share that with the committee. Thank you.
Just to add into that, there is a local walking and cycling infrastructure plan, snappily known as the LC WIP, which has routes that are numbered, and we are picking them off one by one in terms of funding. You're absolutely right. So have a look at that. It's held by the County Council, but we work very closely with them. And I think Colchester has had one of the biggest allocations of funding through active travel and town deals than anywhere.
Mr. Chilvers, you're going to get the final minute, tops. Go. Microphone, please.
Thank you. One of the questions I hoped to have heard was, where was the impact assessment on commerce while the 2 major highways projects are in hand, plus a closure of Britannia? With regards to the cycle lanes, we mustn't forget it is up a hill, and that's going to be a hard sell, a very hard sell, because it strikes me that the demand is coming, instead of the demand coming from below, it's coming from above. As an outsider, I can't help thinking that or wondering whether the town board, who only meet quarterly on Teams, actually have enough time to look at the detail of some of these projects. And I think it's a shame that an organisation such as Age Concern wasn't nominated to be represented on the board, because I reckon that organisation will have a better idea of public needs and the city better than some of the sitting members. They'd be pretty good at detail and recognising issues. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your patience.
I'm going to disappear.
Thank you very much for everyone's attendance. I'm really sorry we didn't quite cover everything tonight. What we did do, we did a very good job on, and thank you to the 2 Simons for coming along and giving us an insight into fantastic projects that you're working on, and we look forward to seeing. On that note, I conclude the meeting. Safe journey and sleep well.